Chapter 8:17. Princess Carol was shocked. The two people beside her were both in the spirit astral realm, but they were killed without a sound. Just how powerful was that person? But that voice sounded familiar. Lung Shiqi appeared with a smile. Princess Carol, I'm here again. So it's you. Princess Carol looked at him with a complicated expression. What do you want this time? Lung Shiqi shrugged. That matter can begin. Hearing this, Princess Carol trembled. She abruptly raised her head and glared at Lung Shiqi with eyes filled with hatred. Ever since her father's death, she had been living in hatred every single day. Over the past few years, she had been enduring humiliation, hiding her identity to run her own forces, and cultivating with all her might. What was she doing this for? It was so that she could one day take back the throne that belonged to her. It could be said that this was the belief that she had persisted until now. Now that Lung Shiqi told her that she could begin, Princess Carol's heart was filled with boundless flames of revenge. She gritted her teeth. What should I do? Princess Carol was very clear about her own ability and the power in her hands. Although it was already a miracle that she could create a second-rate sect in a few years, it was still far from enough to fight against King Gus. And Lung Shiqi was her only hope. Princess Carol, how are the arrangements for the 10,000 Gu Cave and the royal family's relatives? Lung Shiqi asked first. These people were not the main force, but they were the foundation and power on the surface. Princess Kaluo said. Currently, there are already over 100 spirit cultivators in the 10,000 Gu Cave. And as for the clan, we have contacted more than 10 of them. They all have an extremely good relationship with my royal father, and are willing to stand on my side during the uprising. Lung Shiqi nodded. There were many disciples in the 10,000 Gu Cave, but there weren't many in the 4 realms of heaven and man. Fortunately, he didn't count on them. He was only using 10,000 Gu Cave to plant his own people inside. Otherwise, he would be interfering with Zhu Lu's royal family as an outsider. In that case, the Imperial Consecration Hall would not sit idly by. The clans that Princess Carol had convinced were also very important. That would give her a legitimate reason to ascend the throne in the future, and there wouldn't be any evidence left behind. When are you going to make your move? Princess Carol asked in a low voice. It was clear that she was somewhat impatient. Of course, I have to be fully prepared. It will take time for my men to gather here. I can take advantage of this time to settle all your matters. For example, your strength and the conflict with the Heavenly Silkworm Hall. There's no need to care about Heavenly Silkworm Palace. It doesn't matter anymore. That's not true. Lung Shiqi chuckled. Princess Carol, there's no need to be in such a hurry. I'll help you build momentum before we start. At the very least, I'll let everyone know who you are and how talented and strong you are. This will accumulate a lot of prestige for you. You may not know the benefits of these things now, but you will in the future. Princess Carol took a deep breath and said, You're right. I'm too impatient. I'll listen to your arrangements. Lung Shiqi was a little surprised that she was so obedient. In his impression, Princess Carol had never been so easily persuaded. Perhaps this was growing up. In this case, Lung Shiqi didn't have to worry too much. He said, It's very simple. 3 days later, the competition between 10,000 Gu Cave and Heavenly Silkworm Hall will go on as usual. And you have to defeat all your opponents with an unstoppable momentum. Princess Carol understood the intention of this, but she looked a little embarrassed. Of course I want to do this, but the Lord of Heavenly Silkworm Hall, Gouda, is at the 6th level of Gang Spirit Realm. This person is about 50 years old. I don't know how many secret skills he has cultivated. His strength is probably no weaker than the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. If I could defeat this person easily, I wouldn't have to spend so much effort to bribe the spies of Heavenly Silkworm Hall. That's what I said just now. We have to solve the problem of your strength before that. Now I'll take you to a place. Don't resist. Lung Shiqi said and put his hand on Princess Carol's shoulder. Princess Carol subconsciously wanted to avoid it, but she didn't move. Then she felt dizzy and the scene in front of her changed rapidly. When she woke up, she had already come to a dark, gloomy place full of the chi of the netherworld. Mansion of the Dead. Where is this? Lung Shiqi crossed his arms and said. This is the headquarters of our organization Mansion of the Dead. You'd better not think about anything else. I have a big gift for you. Princess Carol didn't understand what Leng Shiqi meant. While she was puzzled, she suddenly saw a majestic black chi descending from the sky above Mansion of the Dead and rushing toward her. She couldn't dodge in time and was swallowed by the black chi. Then a voice sounded, King Wuguan. Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Princess Carol to be able to obtain the inheritance of the Yama kings of the 10 palaces. If she was compared to people of the same age, she would be considered a rare genius in 100 years. Her cultivation was also on par with Xiongming and Yushu. However, the problem was that Yushu and Xiongming were at least a few years younger than Princess Carol. Don't underestimate these few years. True geniuses could undergo earth-shattering changes in these few years. For example, Yushu. If he was given a few more years, he would definitely be able to break through to the unity of heaven and man realm. In this respect, Princess Carol was indeed weaker than them. However, she still obtained the inheritance of the Yama kings of the 10 palaces. Either this level of inheritance wasn't as difficult as Leng Shiqi thought, or Princess Carol had potential that he didn't know about. However, Leng Shiqi wasn't too concerned about this. He was more concerned about the fact that the underworld could finally level up again. Back in the imperial capital, Eunuch Gao had obtained the inheritance of the Yama kings of the underworld when he joined. Now that Princess Carol had obtained the inheritance of King Wuguan, she had fulfilled the requirements for the underworld to level up. However, Leng Shiqi suddenly frowned. He remembered something. Princess Carol hadn't joined the underworld recently. Last time, when he came to welcome the ambassadors from various countries, he had invited Princess Carol into the underworld. However, at that time, he still didn't trust Princess Carol very much, so he didn't bring her into the underworld's secret realm. I wonder if this counts? Leng Shiqi thought as he opened the territory system interface. He took a closer look. Underworld territories current level, Tier 5. Underworld territories upgrade requirements. 1. Recruit 2 Yama kings of the 10 palaces, 0/2. 2. Collect a top-tier soul, 0 out of 1. 3. 160,000 system coins. Underworld has met the upgrade requirements. Territory upgrade requires 300 natural days. Territory cannot be used during this time. Upgrade? It could be upgraded. Leng Shiqi was overjoyed. He immediately chose yes. Chapter 8:18. It was naturally a good thing that the Mansion of the Dead could be upgraded, but Leng Shiqi could not wait for 300 days. He immediately exchanged for 30 basic territory upgrade cards. Basic territory upgrade card detected. It takes time to upgrade the territory. Do you want to upgrade it? Yes. Immediately, the Mansion of the Dead was immediately covered with a layer of gray fog. A divine thought suddenly broke into Leng Shiqi's mind. He seemed to see the entire Mansion of the Dead spreading in all directions. And the speed of the spread was unimaginably fast. After a few blinks of an eye, the signs of the spread finally disappeared. However, Leng Shiqi could not help but open his mouth wide. This was because the area of the Mansion of the Dead had expanded by thousands of times. In terms of area, it was probably larger than the territory of the Thunderfire dynasty. Some places inside had also undergone earth-shattering changes. For example, the underworld Beast Ridge where the monsters lived was even larger than the demonic Miasma mountain range. The road to the underworld seemed to have no end. In the center of the Mansion of the Dead, there was a peak that reached the 9th heaven. At the peak of the peak stood a hideous palace. With a thought, Leng Shiqi instantly arrived in front of the palace. Above the palace, there were 4 large words that flashed with a cold light. Fengdu Imperial Palace. This was the palace of the Emperor of Fengdu. This time, the upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead surprised Leng Shiqi. First of all, the area had become too large. Also, wasn't this palace his own palace? Leng Shiqi walked to the door of the big store. However, he was blocked by an invisible wall. He could not get close at all. Is it because I haven't received the inheritance of the Emperor of Fengdu? He secretly guessed. Although he had the title of the Emperor of Fengdu, he had not received the inheritance yet. Now that the Mansion of the Dead had been upgraded to rank 6, it was a pity that he still had not received the inheritance. The appearance of the Fengdu Imperial Palace gave Leng Shiqi a glimmer of hope. Since the palace had appeared, the inheritance should not be far away. Perhaps he could receive the inheritance the next time he upgraded. Thinking of upgrading, Leng Shiqi curiously opened the territory system to see the requirements for the next upgrade. Mansion of the Dead's current level, rank 6. Requirements for upgrading the Mansion of the Dead. 1. Accumulate 100,000 merit points, 010,0000. 2. Collect 10 top-level souls 0/10. 3. 320,000 system coins. Seeing these 3 conditions, Leng Shiqi frowned. To collect 10 top-level souls, he would have to kill 10 Sky Origin Stage cultivators. Sky Origin Stage cultivators were not easy to kill. First of all, how could you find so many of them? A top sect like the Blood Cloak Pavilion only had 6 Heaven Origin Stage cultivators. Among them, Wu Xiang had only broken through recently. To do that, Leng Shiqi had to kill all the Sky Origin Stage cultivators from the Blood Robe Pavilion and the Mountain Sea sect. Just thinking about it made him feel like he was dreaming. As for the amount of system coins required, it was within Leng Shiqi's expectations. Sure enough, it doubled again. 320,000 system coins could be considered a sky-high price. Even though he was now the king of the Western Wasteland and had control over countless resources, one should not forget that his imperial residence had just been built. To be able to build such a magnificent imperial residence with so many formations in such a short period of time, who knew how many resources it had consumed? Also, Leng Shiqi was now a big family with a large number of experts under him. He was constantly consuming resources. Therefore, it was difficult for him to take out 320,000 system coins. On the other hand, Leng Shiqi was more or less worried as well. Ever since he found out about the drawbacks of the system, he had almost never used the system because he did not want to be eroded by the system's power. When he had just upgraded the Mansion of the Dead, he had spent 160,000 system coins. The system energy had obviously increased, so he could not help but be vigilant. However, the upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead was still necessary. Therefore, Leng Shiqi could only decide to not use the system casually except for the Mansion of the Dead. Speaking of which, the first condition of the next upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead was a little confusing. Accumulate 100,000 merit points? What was merit points? How did he obtain merit points? He was completely clueless. At the very least, there should be an explanation or something. Leng Shiqi looked through the territory system and did not find any explanation. Instead, he found a new ability of the Mansion of the Dead. Teleport. As long as Leng Shiqi gave permission to a member of the Mansion of the Dead, then that person could teleport into the Mansion of the Dead at any time. Moreover, they could freely enter and exit the opening opened by others. Just like the Delta Origi entering the Mansion of the Dead from the Imperial Capital opened a hole in the Imperial Capital, Leng Shiqi entering the Mansion of the Dead from the Zhu Road country was equivalent to opening a hole in the Zhu Road country. In this way, Leng Shiqi could go to the Imperial Capital at any time, and the Delta Origi could directly come to the Zhu Road country. With this function, it meant that he could summon the people of the Mansion of the Dead in an instant. Leng Shiqi could not help but be stunned. At this moment, he thought of a lot of things. Originally, he planned to help Princess Carol first, and then wait for the people of the Mansion of the Dead to come here before making his move. Now that they could directly teleport here, it was much more convenient and saved a lot of time. In addition, Leng Shiqi had been worried that if the Delta Origi disappeared for a long time, they might be suspected. Now there was no such hidden danger. Then he glanced at Princess Carol, who was still receiving the inheritance, and formed a few seals with his hands to form the illusion of the Emperor of Fengdu. Then, several Dharmakaya illusions appeared one after another. Yuanyang Mingyu Ghost Emperor, Delta Origi. Northern Wilderness Yaoyi Ghost Emperor, 9 Li, King Qingguang Yushu, King Pingdang Xiongming, King Luanzhuan Oziyu, and King Xidagarba, 2 Dang. He did not call eunuch Gao and Wu Xiang. These two were the higher-ups of the Thunderblaze dynasty and the Blood Garment Pavilion respectively. Although they would not reveal the secrets of the Mansion of the Dead, they could not participate in the matters of the Zhu Road country. This was the first time Leng Shiqi had summoned so many people at the same time. After they arrived at the Mansion of the Dead, they looked around. Delta Origi, Yushu, and Xiongming naturally recognized each other. However, the others were very unfamiliar. Nineli, Oziu, and Tu Deng also looked at the others curiously. This was the first time they had seen the other members of the Mansion of the Dead. They knew in their hearts that the people who could be pulled into the Mansion of the Dead by Leng Shiqi were not ordinary people. However, they did not know the other party's true identity. This was quite interesting. Leng Shiqi stretched out his hand and said, "Let me introduce everyone. This is Yuanyang Mingyu Ghost Emperor. And the one beside her is King Wu Guan." He introduced everyone one by one. Finally, he pointed at Princess Carol and said, "This time, I called everyone here because the Mansion of the Dead is finally going to make a move. Each of you is the most trustworthy person, and the purpose of the Mansion of the Dead this time is to enter the Zhu Road country." Chapter 819. Delta Origi's illusions trembled slightly. Leng Shiqi's words were truly shocking. Although Zhulu country was a small country, it was still stronger than some of the top sects. How could he become the master just like that? Zhulu country's strength was not to be underestimated, but it was still a country and not a sect. The difference between the two was still huge. Any of the top sects were still within the borders of the three great empires. They had to be restrained by the empires, and did not have the ability to manage normal people. Zhulu country was different. Such a large place was their territory. All the spirit cultivators and normal people were their subjects. There were advantages and disadvantages to this, which was that Zhulu country's strength had to be spread out. There had to be experts overseeing the four borders, and every city had to have experts overseeing it. These people were all scattered across Zhulu country. In contrast, King City's strength was not as concentrated. Leng Shiqi only had to deal with the experts in King City. Normal people would not have such thoughts because there were Sky Origin stage experts overseeing the Royal Consecration Hall. However, Leng Shiqi was not afraid. He had already started plotting against Zhulu country when he was still in the Spirit Aperture realm. It was also because of Princess Kaluo that he did not want to draw out the experts from the Royal Consecration Hall. At this time, Leng Shiqi looked at Nineli and Tu Deng. These two did not seem to have reached the 7th-ranked Great Demon or Sky Origin stage. However, he was sure that their strength definitely surpassed normal Sky Origin stage experts. Adding himself, even if the experts from the Royal Consecration Hall of Zhulu country made a move, it would not be a problem. Leng Shiqi even thought that it would be good if they could make a move. At the same time, he could also increase the progress of Underworld's upgrade. According to what he knew, Zhulu country should have 3 or 4 Sky Origin stage experts. Because they had not made a move for a long time, he could not confirm the exact number. Leng Shiqi looked at the shocked people. The first one to react was Nineli. She laughed lightly. "You little brat, your guts are getting bigger and bigger. You even dare to plot against Zhulu country. How exciting!" Delta Origi turned to look at Nineli. Based on the conversation between Nineli and Leng Shiqi, it seemed that they were quite close. Master Tooting put his palms together and said, "Umitba, this old monk will take action. I hope that this benefactor will refrain from killing." The way he spoke made everyone feel a little strange. They had never come into contact with the matters of Zhulu country, and did not know about the appearance of Buddhism. Otherwise, just based on the words Umitba, they could tell that Tu Deng was a Buddhist. "Don't worry, Grandmaster. Our goal is King Gus. As long as the others don't refuse, I won't be affected by karma," Leng Shiqi said as he pointed at Princess Carol. "Also, I will not sit on Zhulugua's seat, it will be her." Everyone looked at Princess Carol at the same time. At this time, the black gas around her was gradually dissipating. Presumably, the inheritance was about to end. A short moment later, Princess Carol opened her eyes. However, what she saw were several massive phantoms. Leng Shiqi first introduced a few people to Princess Carol, and then said, "These are also members of the underworld. This time, they will help you take back the throne." Then he formed a few seals and attached them to their bodies. Now you can teleport into the underworld at any time. This way, when you encounter danger, you can come in to take refuge. Moreover, you can leave through the exit of others. At this point Yushu exclaimed, "That works too? Then we're invincible." Although Yushu's words were a little exaggerated, they were also what the others were thinking. For example, when they encountered a life and death crisis, they could instantly teleport into the underworld. Unless the opponent had the ability to tear space, they could only stare helplessly. We are scheduled to start in 3 days. I will open the exit of Zhulu country. When the time comes, you can make the arrangements to teleport over. Among these people, Oziu was now helping Lung Shiqi manage the Northern County Dark Thunder Guards and could leave at any time. There was no need to mention Tooting and Julie. The ones who were a little troublesome were Delta Origi, Yushu, and Xiongming. They had complicated relationships in their respective forces, and needed some time to disappear for a period of time. After arranging all of this, Lung Shiqi let everyone disperse first. Until he brought Princess Carol out of the underworld, she was still a little confused. The way she looked at Lung Shiqi had changed. In her eyes, Lung Shiqi was like a mysterious mystery that no one could see through in their lifetime. First of all, they had only met a few times, but every time they met, Lung Shiqi's cultivation realm was different. He also had a mysterious and terrifying secret realm like the underworld, and the members of it were all stronger than the last. Princess Carol could clearly feel that she was the weakest among all of them, especially Jiuli and Tooting. They gave her the feeling that she was facing an erupting volcano that could swallow her at any time. She had never thought that the underworld would be so strong. However, her heart immediately became restless. The stronger the underworld was, the more likely it was for her to take back the throne. Lung Shiqi saw the flames of hatred in Princess Carol's eyes and said, "Princess Carol, you have already received King Wuguan's inheritance, even if it's only 3 days. It's enough for your strength to explosively increase. I believe that the battle between Thousand Gu Cave and Heavenly Silkworm Palace is over." Princess Carol clenched her fists. She felt the mysterious and powerful power in her body and sneered, "I can defeat Heavenly Silkworm Palace's Palace Master Gauda in 1 move. Very good." Lung Shiqi clapped his hands and said, "Many people have specially come to watch this battle. It's a good opportunity. Contact a certain clan as soon as possible. After you win, you can openly reveal your identity in front of everyone. When the time comes, I will have a way to make everyone your supporters." "I understand." With that, Princess Carol left the room to make preparations. Lung Shiqi returned to the underworld and came to Underworld Beast Ridge, which was where the devil beasts stayed before. When he arrived, the first thing he saw was many devil beast corpses. Lung Shiqi wasn't surprised. He had already expected that some devil beasts couldn't adapt to the environment of the underworld, especially the 3rd and 4th ranked devil beasts, most of which were corroded to death by the nether chi. However, they didn't resent Lung Shiqi. If it wasn't for him, they would have died long ago. Seeing him come, the 6th ranked devil beasts immediately surrounded him. 6th ranked devil beasts were very adaptable, but now there were only 4 left. They were the land monkey, the green snake, the giant ape, and a strange bird. The first thing Lung Shiqi saw was Lu Ho, because he remembered that Lu Ho's fur was brownish yellow, but now it had darkened a lot. Some places had even turned black. He didn't think too much. The purpose of this trip was to borrow the power of these 4 6th-ranked devil beasts. If he wanted to enter the Zhulu country, the Sky Origin Realm's high-end combat power was enough. The Spirit Astral Realm's people could sweep across the same realm. Only the unity of Heaven and Man Realm's people were still lacking. In order to be fully prepared, the Land Monkey and these devil beasts had to be used. Chapter 820. In addition to these demon beasts, Lung Shiqi also had 8 ghost slaves under his command. Among them, the Sword Ghost and the Beast Ghost both had the strength of unity of Heaven and Man, and the rest were comparable to Spirit Astral Realm. This was also a force that could not be ignored. Now that he had the strength of 10,000 Gu Cave, the members of Underworld, Demon Beasts and Ghost Slaves, he could even shake the top sects. If he counted the Spirit Cultivators in the Western Wilderness King's Mansion, he could directly attack a top sect. 3 days later, The battle between 10,000 Goo Cave and Sky Silkworm Hall arrived as scheduled. On this day, many people crowded the town. Most of them were here to watch the show. A stone platform was built in the center of the town. At this time, Princess Carol and Sky Silkworm Hall Master Gouda were facing each other with swords drawn. Gouda was a bearded man, but his figure was a little short. He said with a fierce expression, "Our elder Warren disappeared 3 days ago. According to my investigation, his body was found in a remote hut. And someone told me that Madame 10,000 Goo seemed to have been nearby. What did you do to Warren?" Princess Carol said contemptuously, "What, you think I killed him? Who else could it be other than you?" Gouda was furious when he saw Princess Carol's attitude. "Cut the crap. Let's start the battle. Whoever has the bigger fist has the right to question, right?" Princess Carol asked. "Ha ha ha." Gouda was so angry that he laughed. He thought that his cultivation and strength were far stronger than his opponent, but Princess Carol said such words to his face, which made him feel that she did not know what was good for her. "You are right. Today, I will let you know who has the bigger fist. Call your people up." Princess Carol shook her head gently and said, "No need, I alone am enough." These words made Gouda's body stiffen. According to their previous agreement, each side would send 5 people to fight, and the side with more wins would win. But Princess Carol said that she alone was enough? She must be crazy. However, Gouda was also someone who had built a second-rate force. He immediately believed that Princess Carol was cheating. He glanced back and saw several gang spirit realm experts of Thousand Goo Cave standing below obediently, with no intention of fighting on the stage. That's strange. Gold found it very strange. At the same time, a trace of uneasiness arose in his heart. However, he immediately suppressed that uneasiness. In the face of strength, any schemes and tricks were meaningless. "Humph, Mistress Wangu, I don't care what you're scheming. Bring it on. However, if you accidentally die by my hands, don't blame me for not showing mercy to you." Princess Carol opened and closed her eyes. Her pupils became abnormally black, as eye-catching as a pair of black gems. But when you looked over, it was as if there was a mysterious force pulling you into a deep whirlpool, making you unable to extricate yourself. Just like that, Gouda was absent-minded for a moment. His heart quivered, and he instantly bit the tip of his tongue to wake up. He felt a chill run down his spine. He had actually been reduced to such a wretched state by the other party's gaze. "Die." Gouda clapped his hands, and hundreds of white goo worms gushed out of his sleeves. Those goo worms divided into 8 groups and encircled Princess Carol like spiders. Princess Carol's eyes became incomparably cold. She formed a seal with her hands, and the nether chi behind her surged. 5 ferocious ghost masks whizzed out. The onlookers felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Their bodies were shrouded in a strange chill. It was not cold, but an aura full of death. Some people immediately fainted on the spot. "What kind of goo art is that?" Gouda was shocked. He had never seen such a strange goo art. Of course, he did not know that this was no longer a goo art. Princess Carol stretched out her hand, and the 5 ghost masks immediately surrounded Gouda. Then the ghost masks opened their bloody mouths and spat out clouds of different colors. In the blink of an eye, Gouda's white goo worms were all devoured. "Ah!" Gouda screamed. Those goo worms were all carefully cultivated by him. Not only did they cost him a lot of time, but they also absorbed some of his essence blood. Now that they were all killed in an instant, he suffered a considerable backlash. This was not the worst. What shocked him the most was Princess Carol's strength. He knew that Princess Carol had just broken through to the 4th level of the spirit astral realm not long ago. Her cultivation was 2 levels lower than his, and her strength could not compare to his. This was not because he was overconfident, but because goo art could indeed increase one's strength with time. After all, to nurture a precious goo worm that was suitable for oneself required time. But judging from the current situation, Princess Carol's strength was far above his. This shocked and puzzled Gold at the same time. If the other party had such strength, why would she need to fight with him? She could just come to his door and fight. He definitely did not expect that Princess Carol's strength would suddenly soar because she had obtained King Wuguan's inheritance. And as she comprehended more of the inheritance, there would be a period of explosive growth. Under Princess Carol's control, the 5 ghost masks rushed toward Gao-erda. Gao-erda was immediately scared out of his wits. He turned around and fled, but how could he escape from the ghost masks? After 2 breaths, the ghost masks caught up to him and tore him into pieces. Large amounts of blood and minced meat splattered on the spot. Some people could not stand such a horrifying scene, and bent over to vomit. Some people who had experienced bloody battles were also pale. Some felt that something was wrong. Instead, their eyes shone with excitement. Everyone was in awe of the strong. Princess Carol's crushing of Gao-erda in one move shocked everyone. Some people even turned to the people of the Thousand Gu Cave and said they wanted to join. At this moment, Princess Carol threw away the hat and veil she had been wearing, revealing her true appearance. Wow! Is this Lady Thousand Gu? She's so beautiful. So young. Her future is limitless. I always thought she was too ugly to show her face. Turns out she's too beautiful. Cries of surprise erupted in the town. Princess Carol stood upright on the stone platform and said in a crisp voice, "I am Lady Thousand Gu, but I also have another name, Princess Carol." Princess Carol? The daughter of the late king. She's still alive? If she really is Princess Carol, how did she become Lady Thousand Gu? Everyone's eyes widened. They were even more shocked than before. What everyone did not know was that there was a person floating thousands of meters above the town. That was Lung Shiqi. He smiled when he saw the scene below. He formed a seal with his hands, and 9-colored light flashed around him. Illusion Dream Glass. Chapter 8:21. In the small town, Princess Carol stood on the stone platform. She said with grief and indignation, "My father spent all his effort for Zhulu country. He never slacked off in his life, but in the end, he was harmed by a traitor. After my father died, my mother and I were hunted down. Only I was lucky enough to escape with my life. I built the 10,000 Gu cave to endure humiliation in order to take back everything that belongs to me. Are you willing to follow me?" After saying these words, Princess Carol had no confidence at all. She didn't think that she could incite these people with just these few words. However, Lung Shiqi had specifically told her to just say a few words. Princess Carol didn't know why, but she still did as she was told. She stood on the stage and saw that everyone below was a little silly, as if they were in a daze. Just when she was a little confused, everyone immediately burst into a burst of cheers. Then a large number of people knelt down at the same time and shouted, "We pledge our lives to follow Princess Carol." There weren't many people in the small town. Including those who came to watch the show, there were only tens of thousands of people. Now that these people were all kneeling in front of Princess Carol, she didn't come back to her senses. She couldn't figure it out. Was she speaking too well, or was she too charming? No matter what, it shouldn't be like this, right? However, Princess Carol immediately thought that it was very likely that Lung Shiqi had done something in the dark. She took a deep breath and raised her head slightly, revealing the power of a superior. "Get up." "Thank you, Your Highness." Everyone got up one after another, and stood there obediently. Princess Carol glanced at the spirit cultivators of the Heavenly Silkworm Palace. They all had fanatical expressions, including the spirit astral realm experts. What kind of method is this? Even the spirit astral realm can be easily changed. This is many times better than the mind control voodoo. Princess Carol was shocked, but there was no expression on her face. She lowered her head and said, "You are my vanguard and my backing. All spirit cultivators, get ready. Tomorrow we will set off for Lemberg City." "Yes, Your Highness." Lemberg City was the closest city. The next step was to occupy this city and use it as a foundation. After the crowd dispersed, Princess Carol walked into an inn, where Lung Shiqi was already waiting for her. "Your Highness, it's been a long time since you've been worshipped by thousands of people, right?" When Princess Carol was still a princess, she was often bowed to, but in recent years she hadn't been able to enjoy this feeling. "I don't feel anything. I just want to ask a question. Tell me about it." "With your ability, occupying Lemberg City will be a piece of cake, but this will definitely attract the attention of Gus. He might even send a combat army over. Princess Carol said worriedly, even if we're not weak, if we want to fight against the combat army, we're bound to suffer heavy casualties. In my opinion, it's better to sneak into the royal city and find an opportunity to attack the palace. Leng Shiqi nodded seriously. Your Highness is very thoughtful. This is a better idea. You should have thought of it long ago. That's right, it might be easier to do that. But don't forget, Gus has been on the throne for several years. The officials and ordinary people of Zhu Road country have already accepted this king. And at this time, if you suddenly take away the throne, even if you have the support of the clan, it will cause the hearts of the people to be unstable, and there will even be more people who will rebel. We are now making a big fuss to let the world know of your existence. You are standing on the side of justice. When you sit on the throne, you can settle everything in the shortest time possible. Do you want an incomparably chaotic Zhu Road country, or a stable Zhu Road country? Princess Carol pondered for a moment and said, so that's how it is. You have a long-term vision, but this Zhu Road country is not mine. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi smiled. Princess Carol is thinking too much. The Zhu Road country belongs to you, and no one will take it away. Your Highness should go and make the arrangements. We will welcome a fierce battle in Lemberg City. A day later, Princess Carol rushed to Lemberg City with the spirit cultivators in the small town. They had to be fast. They had to occupy Lemberg City before the news spread to the King City. Although it was said to be occupation, in fact, there was only a very short battle here. That was Princess Carol displaying her might and killing the city lord of Lemberg City in 2 moves. Then she easily took over the city lord's mansion and the city guards. Leng Shiqi used an illusion to completely control Lemberg City. Zhu Road Country Palace. How dare you? Suddenly, a loud shout came from the palace. King Gus flipped the dragon table in front of him and said angrily, Carol, a little girl actually dares to rebel. I thought she had already died in the Goo God Peak, but unexpectedly, she escaped with her life. What a pity, since she escaped and didn't know how to hide. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Men, immediately mobilize the Indian army to strangle the traitors in Lemberg City. Remember to bring back Carol's head. I want to choose it from the King City's gate, and let the world know what happens to those who plot against us. Your Majesty, please calm down. At this time, a general stood out and said, Dia, what do you have to say? This Dia had always followed Gus. Back then, he had also experienced the Battle of the Goo God Peak. It could be said that he was one of Gus's most trusted people. Therefore, Gus suppressed the anger in his heart and let him speak. Your Majesty, although that girl Carol is despicable, since she dares to openly cause trouble, she must have something to rely on. Right now, we don't know anything about Lemberg City. We don't even know how many experts are by Carol's side. In my opinion, we can work on both sides. First, mobilize the Indian army, and at the same time, send people to scout the inside of Lemberg City. Just in case, we can also send a few experts to secretly follow. Well said. We'll do as you say. This time you will be responsible for killing Carol. Gary Bo, you two assist Dia. Gary and Bo, she were the 2 Unity of Heaven Realm experts that Gus had recruited. Back then, when Leng Shiqi caused havoc in the Zhu Road Country Palace, he had seen these 2 people. Yes, Your Majesty. The 3 received the order and withdrew. On the other hand, Dia was secretly delighted. He didn't underestimate Carol, but with him leading the Indian army, victory was in his hands. The great merit of exterminating the traitors would fall into his hands. The others also cast envious gazes over. Soon Dia led an army of 10,000 and arrived at the city. Meanwhile, Princess Carol and the experts under her command were already standing on the city wall. Dia rode on his horse and saw Princess Carol's beautiful face. He shouted, Princess Carol, I haven't seen you for a few years. You've become even more beautiful. What a pity, what a pity. This face will soon be hung above the King City. Princess Carol coldly said, Stop talking nonsense. Since you're here today, then stay here forever. Chapter 822. Arrogant. Dea suddenly shouted, He had received information that although there were many spirit cultivators following Princess Carol in Lenberg City, there were not many experts among them. Most importantly, none of them were in the unity of heaven and man realm. Not only were there tens of thousands of Indian soldiers behind Dea, but there were also two in the unity of heaven and man realm. This was a battle without any suspense. Dea pulled out his sword, waved it, and shouted, "Kill!" Princess Carol waved her hand, and hundreds of people jumped down from the city wall. These people were all experts in the four realms of heaven and man. When Dea saw this, he secretly cursed Princess Carol for being extremely stupid. Not to mention that these people were unable to stop the Indian army. Princess Carol might be able to hold on for a while if she defended the city wall to the death. But now, she actually gave up the tall city wall and took the initiative to fight. She was simply courting death. As expected, "You're still a little girl. I overestimated you before." Among the people who rushed out of the city wall, there were 4 people standing at the front. All 4 of them were wearing large cloaks and different devil masks. When Dea saw them, for some reason, a sense of fear rose in his heart. "What the hell?" Dea muttered in his heart, but he did not take it to heart. He immediately charged over with the army. The 4 people were Delta Origi, Yushu, Xiongming, and Oziu. The 2 armies clashed, and Xiongming took the lead. A wave of black gas spread rapidly with him as the center. In an instant, it covered a radius of several miles and enveloped everyone. "What the hell is that? I can't see anything. This black gas is strange. Not only can it block my vision, but it's also slowly eroding my spiritual power." The Indian army was instantly in chaos, and at this moment, a strange blood moon hung high in the sky. Behind Delta Origi stood 3 humanoid blood shadows. One held a blade, one held a spear, and one drew a bow. Sensing it, the 3 blood shadows had power comparable to the peak of the spirit aperture realm. Immediately after, the Delta Origi held a sinister bone sword in her hand, and the blood aura around her surged violently. The eyes of the nearby Indian soldiers immediately turned red, and they started to kill the people around them. The Delta Origi shot out like a blood-red arrow, killing its way into the midst of the Indian army. The ordinary soldiers of the Indian army were also spirit cultivators, but their cultivation was basically at the spirit gathering realm and the pure spirit realm. How could they stop the Delta Origi? Dozens of people had lost their lives in her hands in a single exchange. The nearby Indian soldiers immediately surrounded her. Delta Origi's 2 crimson shadows shielded her back like protectors, while the crimson shadow wielding a bow shot anyone who tried to sneak up on her. However, Gusan charged towards Dia with an indomitable will. At the same time, the phantom of a demon floated above Yushu's body. The demon held a blood blade in its hand and killed the Indian soldiers like a meat grinder. As for Oziu, he was much more graceful. With a light tap of his sword, rays of illusory sword chi shot out in all directions. The low-level Indian soldiers were still immersed in the illusion before they lost their lives. It was not much pain. The 4 of them had just made their move, and the Indian army had already lost hundreds of people. Moreover, everyone was terrified, and there were already signs of the army's morale being slackened. This was something that Dea had never thought of. The Indian army was one of the 3 strongest armies in the Zhulu country. Everyone was carefully selected and trained regularly, so it was impossible for them to be so weak. If they had to blame someone, they could only blame the Delta Origi for being too terrifying. Especially now that all the Indian soldiers were shrouded in the black gas of the netherworld. It was inevitable that they would feel fear in their hearts. The Delta Origi and the others were constantly slaughtering others, and the screams in their ears never stopped. Therefore, the more than 9,000 Indian soldiers behind them had already thought of escaping before they even fought. Of course, it was impossible for them to escape. Dea's spiritual gang burst out and forced a part of the black gas to retreat. He hurriedly said, "Lord Gary, Lord Boshi, please make your move." The strength and threat of the Delta Origi and the others were extremely great. If this continued, even if they took down Lenberg City, there would be a lot of losses. They had to be eliminated first. Gary clapped his hands, and immediately there was a loud bang. The black gas of the netherworld twisted, and was already on the verge of collapse. Boshi, who was beside him, raised a red giant axe. The giant axe smashed down as if it was splitting the sky, and actually cut the black gas in half. The black gas dissipated like smoke, and the Indian army finally calmed down. Gary instantly locked onto the Delta Origi who had been attacking this side. He sneered and said, "You're courting death." Immediately, he pointed out a finger, and an invisible finger force stirred the wind and pierced out. In his opinion, no matter how strong the Delta Origi was, they were only in the gang spirit realm. The only outcome was death. However, at this moment, a sinister wind blew past, and even Gary, who was in the union of heaven and man realm, felt a chill down his spine. Immediately after, a shocking intent soared into the sky. A sinister sword aura appeared and tore the sky apart, directly cutting off Gary's finger force. The person who made the move was the ghost slave that the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster had turned into, the Sword Ghost. Who is it? Gary was shocked. To be able to cut off his finger force, the other party's strength was probably above his. On the other side, Boshi was also targeted by a strange aura. A translucent figure descended from the sky. As he waved his hand, ghostly aura surged and condensed into terrifying monsters that pounced towards Boshi. That was the ghost slave that Zhuozhou had turned into after his death, the Beast Ghost. The Sword Ghost and the Beast Ghost immediately started fighting with Gary and Boshi. Violent spiritual energy waves were released, and the Indian army was affected. As a result, hundreds of people died. Dea was stunned. Just now, the Delta Origi were indeed very strong, but Dea had the army and was confident of victory. However, not only was he stunned now, he was also panicking. There were actually 2 people at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage hidden in Lemberg City. This was something that they did not find out before. Otherwise, he would not have killed his way over. Although he still had the Indian army, there were many low-level spirit cultivators on Princess Carol's side who had not made a move yet. In addition to the experts from the Delta Origi, this originally easy battle suddenly became very troublesome. Princess Carol, who was on the city wall, was also very surprised when she saw the scene below. Lung Shichi still had people at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage, which was something that even Princess Carol did not know about. Is he deliberately hiding it from me? However, Princess Carol also knew that now was not the time to think too much. The morale of the Indian army was low, and the 2 people at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage were entangled. This was the best time to counterattack. Everyone listen to my orders. Kill your way out of the city. Bang! The city gates of Lemberg City were opened, and more than 1,000 low-level spirit cultivators swarmed out and attacked the Indian army. If it was in the past, such a motley crew was basically no match for the Indian army. However, the people from the Delta Origi were unstoppable in the Indian army. Even if some of the spirit astral realm experts of the Indian army came over, they could not stop them. Dea's face was gloomy. Everything happened too quickly, so quickly that he was caught off guard. He even had a ridiculous thought in his mind. Failure. Chapter 8:23. Dea shook his head abruptly. How could he fail? Although he was in a bit of a mess now, he still had a huge advantage in terms of numbers and strength. He could win even if he had to fight to the death. All of a sudden, he was shrouded by a gust of murderous intent. He turned around and saw Delta Origi drenched in blood crazily charging at him. Delta Origi was surrounded by layers of bloody mist. That was the bloody chi left behind by the people she had killed. It had only been a while, but hundreds of people had died in her hands. Dea's heart skipped a beat. Stop her. Stop her for me. The 2 gang spirit realm experts on his left and right rushed at Delta Origi. However, the blood moon hanging high in the sky suddenly trembled, and then fell down with a terrifying whistling sound. Dense bloody chi covered the sky and earth. Delta Origi leaped high and pinched a seal. At this moment, she seemed to have become one with the blood moon. The bone sword in her hand slashed out, and a crescent sword light tore through the void. This power had far exceeded the scope of gang spirit realm, and attracted the attention of countless people. The 2 gang spirit realm experts were immediately scared out of their wits. They turned around and fled without any hesitation. Unfortunately, Delta Origi's bow-wielding blood shadow suddenly shot thousands of arrows at the same time. Hundreds of blood-red arrows fell from the sky. These blood arrows were not very powerful, but they happened to block the two people's path at this moment. The two people were terrified and immediately called for help. Lord Dea, help! Help! Unfortunately, before they could finish their words, they were cut into two by the blood moon. Hiss! Dea sucked in a breath of cold air. Both of them were at the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm. Yet, they were killed in an instant. He looked at Delta Origi with fear in his eyes. Where did this expert come from? Seeing Delta Origi continue to charge at him, Dea's heart was finally in a mess. There were other masters of Gang Spirit Realm in the Indian army, but they had been entangled by Yushu, Princess Carol, and others. After a few moves, they were either killed or injured. Everyone could hardly protect themselves, so no one could help him. Gary and Bossy were also being suppressed by Sword Demon and Beast Demon. Had it not been for the fact that Sword Demon and Beast Demon did not possess a physical body, which limited their strength, the two men would have already been severely injured. As for the ordinary Indian soldiers, they were just sending themselves to their deaths. There was no way they could stop the Delta Origi. Dea suddenly realized that he was standing at the edge of the gates of hell. If he was really killed, the Indian army would be like a group of dragons without a leader, and the morale of the army would definitely drop. They might even be defeated by the 1,000+ men. Dea didn't even dare to dream of such a situation. However, this was the reality. The change was too fast. In just a short moment, he had gone from having victory in his grasp to almost running away. He knew that if he escaped, he would be severely punished by King Gus. However, the Delta Origi were too strong, and he had no confidence in fighting them. If he didn't run, he might die. How was he supposed to choose between being punished and dying? Dea quickly made his choice. Escape. All of you go and surround her. Dea ordered the dozen or so Spirit Aperture Realm cultivators around him in a panic. No matter how useless these people were, they would at least be able to stall for some time. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he actually ignored his status in the Indian army and urged his horse to flee. Gary was the first to see this, and he immediately scolded. Dea, you actually dare to run away. This is a crime punishable by death. Cowardly rat. Bossy was also gnashing his teeth in hatred. The two of them were being beaten up by Sword Demon and Beast Demon to the point where they could not even retaliate. They had originally pinned their hopes on Dea to quickly exterminate Princess Carol, but Dea had actually run away first. Dea was the leader of this operation to encircle and annihilate Princess Carol. Now that their leader had run away, what were they still fighting for? Thus Gary and Bossy both had the same thought. Since Dea was the one who ran away first, they could push the blame onto Dea even if they were to be blamed for it. If they wanted to leave now, they could still do so at any time, but if they were to continue fighting, there was no telling what would happen. The two men secretly exchanged glances and came to a decision. If they did not leave now, when would they? Following which, the two men suddenly burst forth and forced Sword Demon and Beast Demon to retreat before quickly leaving the battlefield. Following the escape of the three men, the remaining Indian soldiers were completely dumbfounded. Their commander had run away, and their two strongest men at the Unity of Heaven realm had also run away. Did that not mean that they could only be slaughtered? They had been abandoned. Yushu and the others could casually slaughter dozens of people with a single strike. In the eyes of the Indian soldiers, they were no different from demons. At this time, Princess Carol had already led a group of spirit cultivators to kill their way over. There were less than 2,000 spirit cultivators here, but this caused the remaining 9,000 over Indian soldiers to feel despair. Immediately, there were quite a number of people who threw away their helmets and armor and became deserters. As the saying goes, a defeated army is like a landslide. The Indian soldiers instantly panicked and did not know where to go, turning into a pile of scattered sand. Run. Ghosts, they are ghosts. You are soldiers. Even if you die, you will die on the battlefield. Desertion is a disgrace. There were also people who shouted themselves hoarse, unwilling to escape. Don't block me, scram. However, this person was directly pushed aside. The Indian army fell into chaos. It could be said that they were utterly defeated. Princess Carol frowned when she saw the Indian army like this. Although her side had taken them by surprise, the number of Indian soldiers was still here. Moreover, they were all wearing armor and were well equipped. Just this point alone was not something that Princess Carol's soldiers could compare to. In addition, although the Delta Origi's strength was extraordinary, like a tiger in a flock of sheep, their violent attacks could not last for long. As long as the Indian army stabilized their footing and set up their military formation, as long as Lung Shichi did not reveal any other trump cards, the Indian army still had hope of winning. But now, with Dia and the other two escaping, the Indian army had become like this. To be honest, this made Princess Carol somewhat disappointed. Her Zulu country's elite army, the Indian army, was so weak. She secretly made up her mind that when she became the king, she would definitely rectify it. However, at this moment, Princess Carol needed to end this battle as soon as possible. Because no matter who it was, both sides were citizens of Zulu country, her citizens. Princess Carol gathered her spiritual energy and shouted, "Everyone listen up. We are all citizens of Zulu country. There is no need to fight to the death. Now that Dia has abandoned you, as long as you surrender to me, you can keep your lives." The people behind her shouted in unison, "Those who surrender will not be killed. Those who surrender will not be killed. Those who surrender will not be killed." Many people in the Indian army were immediately moved. If there was hope of living, who would want to die? However, some people were still hesitating. If they became deserters, they could just hide. But if they became rebels, they would be hunted down by Zulu country for the rest of their lives. If Princess Carol failed in the end, they would still die. Just as they were hesitating, an undetectable spiritual energy quietly invaded their minds. In their eyes, Princess Carol was a high and mighty deity that could not be offended. Everyone was prostrating before her. "I am willing to surrender. Greetings, Princess Carol." Chapter 824. Boom. In the palace of Zulu country, a miserable body was blasted out, leaving a deep trail of blood along the way. That person was Dea. Dea was sent flying by King Gus with a slap. As the commander-in-chief, you actually fled at the last minute, and let nearly 10,000 Indian soldiers surrender to the traitor Carol. You still have the guts to come and see me. If it weren't for our old friendship, I would have torn you into pieces right now. King Gus roared. In fact, he was usually a scheming person, and had never been so irritable. It was Dea who had provoked him this time. This trip to Lemberg City was simply a suicide mission. It was supposed to be an extermination mission, but in the end he sent a large number of Indian soldiers to Princess Carol. Originally, Princess Carol was just a small matter in Gus's eyes. Now with the Indian army, Princess Carol had the qualifications to challenge Gus. Although Princess Carol only had 10,000 men under her command, Zulu country still had tens of thousands of soldiers. On the surface, it looked like they had a great advantage. But don't forget, Zulu country was a country after all. It was surrounded by Belu country and Great Moon country, who had been eyeing it covetously. At this time, the news of Princess Carol's rebellion should have spread to them. If Gus mobilized a large number of troops to eliminate Princess Carol, Belu country and Great Moon country would definitely not turn a blind eye. They would hit her when she was down. Therefore, Princess Carol could already threaten the safety of Zulu country. Dea still had a few breaths left. He got up with difficulty and knelt on the ground to explain, "Your Majesty, I have been defeated and fled. I deserve to die. No matter how your Majesty punishes me, I will have no complaints. But the biggest reason why I lost this battle was that the intelligence was inaccurate. Carol has several spirit astral realm experts under her command. Their strength is not inferior to the union of heaven and man realm. They killed their way in as if they were invading a no man's land. None of us could stop them. In addition, Carol actually hid 2 union of heaven and man realm experts. Lord Gary and Lord Bushi are no match for them. Both of you can bear witness to this. This humble subject is not lying at all." "Really?" King Gus looked at Gary and asked. Gary said in a deep voice, "Dea is telling the truth." Crack crack. King Gus immediately crushed his throne. Now he finally knew where Princess Carol's confidence came from. It turned out that she had hidden it so deeply. He had to find a way to deal with Princess Carol as soon as possible. Otherwise, if the other party's forces continued to expand, there would be no leeway left. King Gus hatefully said, "Dea, in consideration of your years of loyalty, I'll spare your life for now. In the future, you'll be the vanguard in our crusade against Kaler." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Thank you for your kindness." Dea was so happy that he could keep his life. "Not good, Your Majesty, something big has happened." At this time, a group of people ran in from outside the palace. They were the officials in charge of Zhu Lu's intelligence. Dea had not seen these people for a long time. Back then, it was because of these people's wrong information that he had made such a huge mistake and almost lost his life. Thus he sneered, "Impudent! How could something happen to Your Majesty's health? How dare you make such a ruckus in the palace?" However, these people did not pay him any attention. One of them took out a dozen reports in a panic and said with a trembling voice, Your Majesty, a large number of people supporting Kaler have appeared in the various cities. They are constantly spreading the news. Right now, Kaler's influence is unprecedentedly strong. Your Majesty, you are about to lose the hearts of the people." Buzz, King Gus's mind was in a daze. Soon after he muttered, "Impossible, absolutely impossible. Kaler has just started her rebellion a few days ago. How could she have so many supporters? It's the Buddhist sect. The entire Buddhist sect has already submitted to Kaler. At first, we didn't pay much attention to it. But suddenly, we discovered that the Buddhist sect's believers have spread throughout Zhu Lu. Moreover, those believers are spreading like a plague. I'm afraid it won't be long before the world only knows about Kaler and not Your Majesty." The Buddhist sect. King Gus was even more dazed. He naturally knew about the Buddhist sect, especially after Tu Dang made his move. Everyone knew that the Buddhist sect had a Sky Origin Stage expert overseeing it. A Sky Origin Stage expert was a huge threat to the Zhu Lu country. They had to either subdue him or eliminate him. Therefore, King Gus had specially sent people to persuade Tu Dang to submit to the Zhu Lu country. However, he never thought that the Buddhist sect would actually support Princess Kaler. He never thought that the influence of the Buddhist sect would be so great. All of a sudden, King Gus felt a little scared. Princess Kaler had over 10,000 spirit cultivators in her hands, and many experts under her command. Adding the support of the people, it could be said that the situation was already set. There was also the Buddhist sect. If the Buddhist sect had submitted to Kaler, it meant that the Sky Origin Stage expert, Tu Dang, was also on Kaler's side. In the Imperial City, who could deal with a Sky Origin Stage expert? King Gus immediately thought of the Royal Consecration Hall. The only ones who could save him were the few experts in the Royal Consecration Hall. But what he was worried about was that those people might not make a move. Princess Kaler was the daughter of the previous king, and indeed had the qualifications to inherit the throne. This kind of matter was an internal struggle of the royal family, and the Royal Consecration Hall would not interfere. Therefore, the key point was the Buddhist sect. If King Gus could prove that the Buddhist sect had submitted to Princess Kaler, it would be equivalent to the Spirit Cultivator sect joining in. This would give them a reason to invite the experts of the Consecration Hall. King Gus sat down, his eyes shining. After a while he smiled and said, "There's no need to worry about this. You guys take care of your own duties. Leave the rest to me." With that, King Gus left, leaving behind a majestic back view for the crowd. Everyone suddenly felt relieved. It seemed that their king had found a way. In Lemberg City, Princess Kaler was half happy and half worried after seeing the information. She asked Lung Shichi, "You can actually use the power of the Buddhist sect. This way, I can obtain a lot of people's hearts. However, with the participation of the Spirit Cultivator sect, I'm afraid that Gus will be able to invite the experts of the Royal Consecration Hall. I heard that the Buddhist sect has a Sky Origin Stage expert, but the Consecration Hall has several Sky Origin Stage experts. If they were to make a move, we wouldn't even have a chance of winning." However, Lung Shichi said, "Strictly speaking, the Buddhist sect is not a spirit cultivator sect. Moreover, the people who support you are only ordinary people. Gus might not be able to invite them." Even so, Those people in the consecration hall don't know the true situation of the Buddhist sect. With Gus's scheming, he will definitely avoid the important points and add fuel to the fire. Once the Sky Origin stage expert comes, we won't even be able to escape. Princess Kaler was a little anxious. Lung Shiqi narrowed his eyes, and a trace of undetectable killing intent flashed through his eyes. He said, "So what?" Chapter 825. Princess Carol's eyes widened in disbelief. She looked up and down at Lung Shiqi, as if it was the first time she had seen him. What did you just say?" "Well, Your Highness, don't worry. I've arranged everything. You just need to wait for the throne." Princess Carol knew that Lung Shiqi was hiding something from her, which made her feel like a tool. In fact, it was true. But Princess Carol was willing to be a tool. As long as she could take back the throne, she was willing to do anything. Perhaps from the beginning, there was only hatred in her heart. She didn't know when it started, but she coveted the throne more and more. A few days later, Lemberg City was calm. This puzzled many people. Gus would never let Princess Carol continue to expand her reputation and power. Why didn't he take action? But some people knew very well that this was just the calm before the storm. At night, Lung Shiqi sat cross-legged in the mansion of the governor of Lemberg City. He opened his Byakugan and kept an eye on everything in Lemberg City. Suddenly, dozens of powerful spiritual auras entered his field of vision. Lung Shiqi snorted. Sure enough, they're here. It was King Gus. His idea was not to suppress the border with an army, but to kill Princess Carol directly with masters. As long as Princess Carol died, these traitors wouldn't be a problem. In the vision of Lung Shiqi, there were 5 masters of the oneness of heaven and men realm, including King Gus, and more than 60 masters of the gang spirit realm. It seems that Gus has been secretly mobilizing these masters these days. Almost all the masters of the Zhulu kingdom have been transferred. But these people are far from enough. Gus doesn't dare to lead the army in person. Lung Shiqi guessed that Gus probably also brought masters of the Tianyuan realm. Unfortunately, if the masters of the Tianyuan realm wanted to hide, his Byakugan wouldn't be able to find them. Now Gus was still dozens of miles away from Lemberg City. With their speed, they could enter Lemberg City in a moment. Lung Shiqi immediately transmitted a message to Princess Carol. Gus is here. Go out and fight. Princess Carol's heart tightened. Gus had actually come in person. She had no time to think and immediately left Lemberg City with Lung Shiqi with all the masters of Gang Spirit Realm. Once they started fighting, the city wouldn't be able to withstand it. Meanwhile, Gus was leading a group of masters to approach Lemberg City with murderous intent. As soon as they got close, they saw more than 20 figures standing outside the city gate. It was as if they knew they were coming. Uncle Gus, why didn't you inform me that you're coming to Lemberg City, so late at night? I could have prepared a feast for you. Princess Carol's voice came from the darkness. Gus stopped in his tracks. Initially, he had planned to sneak into Lemberg City and take the city by surprise, but it seemed like they had been discovered long ago. He just didn't know if the other party had guessed correctly, or if he had leaked some information on his side. Gus glanced at the people around him. There were very few people who knew about the assassination of Princess Carol, and almost everyone was here, who leaked the information. However, there was no time for him to catch the traitor at this moment. He couldn't even show his suspicion, otherwise he would only panic first. Gus looked at Princess Carol and felt very strange. He said in a deep voice, "Little Carol, it's really lucky that you didn't die in the Battle of Gugod Peak. But why are you against me? It's not me who hurt your father and mother, but Sang Hatong. Also, since you've been hiding in Zhulu country for the past few years, you should know whether I've ever done anything foolish or wronged the people of Zhulu country since I ascended the throne. Now you're against me. I don't understand." As soon as he opened his mouth, he put himself on the side of innocence and justice. However, Princess Carol was no longer the Princess Carol of the past. She said in a cold voice, "Ridiculous. If I had shown up at Gugod Peak, I'm afraid I would have been killed by you. It's useless to say more. As the ruler of a country, didn't you also do a dirty thing like sneak attack tonight? Now that things have come to this, there's only one outcome between us." Gus was observing the spirit cultivators behind Princess Carol. They were all masters of the spirit astral realm. Most of them were recruited, and a few of them were from the Indian army. However, there was no one Gus wanted to see. According to Dea, when he led the Indian army to attack Lemberg City, there were 4 people who were very strong, but they didn't appear at this moment. There were also 2 powerful masters of the unity of heaven and man realm. They were the ones Gus feared the most. Although the people he brought this time could absolutely crush Princess Carol in terms of strength, Gus was a meticulous person. He didn't allow any hidden dangers to exist. Since you've already said that, then don't blame me for not showing mercy. Gus formed a seal with both hands, and the sky suddenly became dark clouds. The power of water elements within a radius of dozens of miles surged crazily. The surroundings of Lemberg City were filled with water vapor, and a powerful spirit technique was ready to be launched. Gus was still observing the surroundings. He didn't believe that the other party could remain calm. Then, a cloud of black fog suddenly appeared, and several figures walked out of it. They were Delta Origi, Yushu, and Oziu. Sure enough, I blew them out. Gus smiled proudly. He sneered and said, "Just the 3 of you? Where are the others? Come out. There's no need to hide. Otherwise, I'll have to collect your corpses." Hee, it's not certain who will collect whose corpses. Yushu immediately said sarcastically, "I have to admire you. As the king, you dare to fight in person, and take away more than 80% of the masters of King City. I don't know if you're confident or conceited. Aren't you worried about your backyard being on fire?" Hearing this, King Gus felt that something was wrong. Since the other party already knew that he was coming, he naturally knew that King City was at its weakest now. There were only a few spirit astral realm masters left. If someone broke into King City at this time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Oh no. King Gus was anxious, but he immediately calmed down. After all, King City was King City, and there were masters of the Royal Hall of Worship secretly guarding it. Nothing serious would happen. As long as he could kill Princess Carol and the others in the shortest time and return to King City, all the crises would be gone. Listen to my order. Go all out to eliminate the traitors. King Gus shouted. Immediately he pressed his hands and a torrential rain fell. Every drop of rain contained powerful water spiritual power. The spirit cultivators on Princess Carol's side could only support their body-protecting spiritual gang to barely hold on. At this moment, a figure wearing the mask of the Emperor of Fengdu appeared strangely. He raised his hand and hundreds of bloody balls scattered in the sky. Everyone was stunned when they took a closer look. Those were all human heads, and they were the heads of Gus's trusted subordinates. Chapter 826. Everyone was shocked when they saw the heads. King Negus's eyes were bloodshot. He had personally groomed the owners of these heads. Many of them had been with him since he came of age. They were his most trusted subordinates. Not only that, they all held important positions in the Zhu Road Kingdom. They were the pillars of the kingdom. But they were all dead. They were all dead. The head was thrown right in front of him, which made Gus furious. At the same time, he couldn't believe this was real. The dead people all had their own guards. They were scattered all over the kingdom. How could they be killed all at once? How chaotic would the kingdom be? Most importantly, there were Sky Origin stage cultivators from the Royal Hall of Worship in the King City. Under such circumstances, they were still killed. Even Sky Origin stage cultivators could not stop them. How terrifying was the person who did it? Was it the Sky Origin stage cultivator from the Buddhist sect? Gus couldn't do it. But he knew that his backyard was on fire. Carol, what a good move. I underestimated you. I'll take your life to appease my hatred. Gus was on the verge of going crazy. The dark clouds in the sky were like black clouds pressing down on the city. That shocking killing intent made everyone tremble in fear. Princess Carol couldn't believe it either. She had been with Lung Shiqi for the past few days. How could he go to the kingdom and kill so many people, and then return to the kingdom? Even if he could fly, he couldn't do it. In fact, Lung Shiqi had Xiongming secretly go to the kingdom a few days ago. His original intention was to let Xiongming investigate Qing Xi's strength. Who would have thought that Qing Si would bring his men to attack them? This gave Leng Shiqi a great opportunity. After Leng Shiqi notified Princess Carol, he turned around and teleported to the royal city through the underworld. What followed was a series of massacres. All of Gus's trusted subordinates died in his hands. It wasn't hard to get information on them. After all, they were all in high positions. Their whereabouts were easy to track. Moreover, they would have to kill Princess Carol sooner or later after she ascended to the throne. Now it was just a bit earlier. The Leng Shiqi used the Qiankuan earth movement technique to harvest lives mercilessly like a ghost. There were also several fierce battles that attracted a large number of imperial guards. In the end, it even attracted the attention of the Sky Origin Stage cultivators who were guarding the city. Leng Shiqi immediately withdrew his attack, and under the cover of the Netherworld, the two of them teleported back from the royal city, which led to the earlier scene. At the same time, Leng Shiqi also got a secret message. Since there was only one Sky Origin Stage cultivator in the city, it meant the other powerful cultivators of the Zhu Lu Kingdom's Royal Hall of Worship were all around the city. Gus made a series of hand seals in a frenzy. Dazzling spiritual light illuminated the night sky as boundless water elemental power invaded this part of the world. Immediately after, a huge spirit crystal rose from the ground. Streams of water vapor shot out from the spirit crystal, like a whirlwind. It was powerful enough to sweep through the entire area. Leng Shiqi's eyes narrowed. Gus' attack had some resemblance of a Sky Origin Stage cultivator. Of course, to him, it was still a bit weak. However, he was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he waved his hand and two phantom-like figures appeared. It was Sword Demon and Beast Demon. You're finally willing to show yourselves. Unfortunately, with just the two of you acting mysterious, you'll still have to die. King Gus's anger transformed into boundless spirit energy that enveloped both the Sword Demon and the Beast Demon. Sword Demon used his finger as a sword and pointed it out. Boundless sword intent covered the sky and earth as if it was 10,000 swords returning to the origin. It tore through half of Gus' spiritual energy. At the same time, Beast Demon transformed into a huge ancient mutated beast. Its sharp claws tore through the sky and shattered Gus' spirit crystal. So strong! Gus exclaimed. He looked at Sword Demon and Beast Demon deeply, then looked at Leng Shiqi. 3 Unity of Heaven Origin Stage cultivators were indeed a powerful force. Following which, Gus raised his arm and called out. 4 people stood beside him, all of them Unity of Heaven Origin Stage experts. So what if they were strong? Could they fight 3 against 5? As long as these 3 were dealt with, the rest of Princess Carol's group would be no more than lambs waiting to be slaughtered. King Gus, are you trying to take advantage of your superior numbers? If that's the case, I'm more than happy to oblige, Leng Shiqi said calmly. He suddenly whistled, and several demonic roars could be heard. 4 demonic beasts surging with powerful demonic energy appeared in the sky. They were a human-sized spirit monkey, a one-armed giant ape, a green snake, and a strange bird circling in the air. Demonic beasts. Where did these demonic beasts come from? This is the first time I've seen a demonic beast in my life. They are all rank 6 demonic beasts. Seeing the appearance of the spirit monkey, both Princess Carol's group and Gus's group were shocked. The demonic Miasma mountain range and the northern wastelands were too far away from Zhu Lu country, so the people here could only learn about demonic beasts from books. More than 99% of the people here had never seen a demonic beast in their lives. Not to mention rank 6 demonic beasts comparable to Unity of Heaven Origin Stage cultivators. Moreover, in general, demonic beasts of the same level were stronger than spirit cultivators. After all, their demonic bodies were their most powerful weapons. The most inconceivable thing was that demonic beasts would actually listen to spirit cultivators' orders. Demonic beasts and humans were clearly mortal enemies. Everyone was at a loss again. Or had their ideas always been wrong? Gary, Boshi, and the other Unity of Heaven Origin Stage cultivators suddenly felt the pressure double. Just now, it was 5 against 3, but in the blink of an eye, it became 5 against 7. Not only were their numbers, but the opponent's individual strength was also stronger than them. The result of this battle was already known without even fighting. At this moment, Gus was not in the mood to think about these things. On the contrary, his face was not as crazy as before. Instead, it became calm like an ancient well. Powerful, powerful. Gus praised Lung Shiqi, as if he could already tell that Lung Shiqi was the real core. If I did not prepare a backup plan, I might really die here. 3 lords, please show yourself. Suddenly, the origin energy of heaven and earth exploded, and 3 old figures stood in the air. To be called lords by Gus, and to have the ability to step on air, these 3 were undoubtedly Zhulu country's Imperial Consecration Hall's Sky Origin Stage cultivators. The appearance of these 3 made Princess Carol and the others' faces turn ashen. In the end, Gus still managed to invite Sky Origin Stage cultivators. Their defeat was already destined, and they could even foresee the outcome of their deaths. On the other hand, Gus's morale was greatly boosted. They looked at Lung Shiqi and Princess Carol, as if they were looking at a pile of corpses. Gus raised his head and said, 3 lords, you have also seen it. This person has netherworld chi, and can command demonic beasts. He is definitely not someone from our Zhulu country. For the throne, Carol did not hesitate to collude with the Buddhists and even collude with outsiders. She must be killed. None of the 3 old men paid attention to Gus. They were all staring at Lung Shiqi. At this moment, Lung Shiqi was wearing a large black and gold cloak like the Delta Origi and the Fengdu Emperor's mask, making it impossible for others to see through him. However, the dense netherworld chi on his body actually made the 3 Sky Origin Stage cultivators feel a trace of threat. This made the 3 of them immediately think of a place, the Netherworld Temple. They suspected that Lung Shiqi might be someone from the Netherworld Temple. This was no small matter, so one of them asked, "May I know your name?" Lung Shiqi said word by word, "Underworld Fengdu Emperor." Chapter 827. Underworld? Never heard of it. Since he is not from the Nether Temple, then it is easy to deal with him. That person immediately spoke with killing intent. Emperor of Fengdu? What a big name. Remember, the one who will kill you is the shocking dragon sword king. This person suddenly stabbed out with his sword. Endless heavenly dragon's roar shook 1,000 li. The sword flipped and the heavenly dragon swung its tail. In an instant, the dragon's roar was about to destroy Lung Shiqi. However, Lung Shiqi's expression did not change. He did not even move. The others thought that he was scared silly. That shocking dragon sword king's mouth also curled up into a sinister smile. However, just as the sword dragon was roaring, a Buddhist chant was heard. Amitba. The Buddhist chant was not loud, but it contained a strange rhythm, as if it could communicate with the heaven and earth. The heavens and the earth twisted, and the shocking sword dragon actually collapsed with a bang. A figure bathed in Buddhist light walked out. He is Master Tu Dang. Tu Dang is not wearing Underworld's attire because his identity is too easy to recognize. His appearance caused Shocking Dragon Sword King's expression to turn heavy. He did not notice Tu Dang's existence earlier, and Tu Dang was able to easily destroy his sword dragon. This means that Tu Dang's strength is definitely above his. Also, the Buddhist technique that Tu Dang used was incomparably mystical. It is also unheard of. Lord Shocking Dragon, he is the leader of Buddhism, Tu Dang. Buddhism is indeed colluding with that traitor Kaluo. Gus recognized Tu Dang and spoke with hatred. So it is you who created Buddhism. At this moment, another heaven origin realm spoke. He is an old man with a goatee. From his words, he seems to be interested in Buddhism. Do you really want to stand against us? I admit that you are very strong. Perhaps stronger than any one of the 3 of us. However, you are alone. Why do you insist? Why don't you join Consecration Hall? We can make Buddhism the national religion of Zhulu country. Tu Dang remained silent. He clasped his hands together and Buddhist light soared into the sky behind him. An immovable wisdom king appeared and expressed his answer. Fight. I'm ignorant. Finally, the heaven origin stage cultivator shouted coldly. Qinglin, there's no need for you to waste words with him. Anyone who dares to interfere with the throne of Zhulu country is courting death. The vital energy of heaven and earth around him suddenly exploded, and the divine light above his head drove away the darkness. His hands formed a seal, and suddenly, divine light bloomed. It was clearly a dazzling light, but it made people feel as if the sky had darkened. However, at this moment, a purple light floated out. That purple light was like a small boat in the middle of a monstrous wave. It looked like it could capsize at any time. However, what was surprising was that the purple light did not disappear. On the contrary, it grew stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, there was only a glaring purple light left in this space. Ah! He suddenly let out a strange cry. Others didn't know what was going on, but he knew that his divine light had been swallowed by the purple light at the beginning. For someone to be able to do this, how strong was he? Shenxiao, what's going on? Startling Dragon Sword King asked anxiously. Divine Firmament, or rather, Venerable Divine Firmament, looked as if he was facing a great enemy. He shouted into the air. Which expert is here? Show yourself. TSK, TSK, TSK. A mighty person from the royal family's hall of worship only has this much courage? Don't be nervous. Nine Leaf appeared strangely with the ghost emperor Yao Yi mask. The three immediately frowned. They realized that Nine Leaf's aura was very strange. It had the netherworld aura of the Lung Shiqi and the demonic aura of the Lu Monkey and the rest. Who exactly is this person? Of course, what they were more concerned about was Nine Leaf's strength. Although they hadn't really fought, being able to swallow Divine Firmament's divine light was enough for them to take him seriously. Most importantly, Nine Leaf made them realize that it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to take down Princess Carol tonight. If Princess Carol only had Tu Deng, who was at the Divine Firmament realm, it would be fine. They could just surround and attack him. But now there was another Nine Leaf, and he was very strong. The three of them might be able to defeat Tu Deng and Nine Leaf together, but it was basically impossible to kill them. It was more likely that the five of them were in a stalemate. If that was the case, Lung Shiqi and the other rank 6 demonic beasts would be stronger than Gus, and the victory of this battle would be in Princess Carol's favor. Gus instantly thought of this, and his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He had never expected Princess Carol to be able to find 2 Divine Firmament Realm cultivators. How did she do it? At the same time, Gus felt like he was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. Although there were 3 Divine Firmament Realm cultivators fighting against 2, it was a pity that there was no absolute suppression. On the other hand, Princess Carol's unity of Heaven Realm cultivators were far stronger than Gus's. As for Spirit Astral Realm cultivators, they were somewhat insignificant in a battle of this level. This time, he had brought 99% of Zhulu country's strongest forces. If they still couldn't take down Princess Carol, there was no other way. From a certain point of view, everyone he brought was the pillar of Zhulu country. Most of them were the upper echelons of the various city lords, as well as the generals of the battle army. If they were to suffer heavy losses in this battle, then their vitality would be damaged. Now it was even more impossible for Gus to retreat. In that case, he could only fight to the end. He transmitted a message to the 3 lords: you can fight and then take advantage of the chaos to kill the traitor Carol. As long as she is dead, the traitor will have no reason to ascend the throne, and Zhulu country will naturally be stable. The 3 exchanged a look. They were Divine Firmament Realm cultivators, and they really couldn't bring themselves to attack Princess Carol, who was only at Spirit Astral Realm. But they also felt that Tu Deng and Nine Leaf were very difficult to kill. It was indeed difficult to kill them directly, so this was the only way. Brother Startling Dragon, for the stability of Zhulu country, this is the only way. Our reputation is nothing compared to that of Zhulu country. Shenxiao and Qinglin transmitted a message to each other. The Startling Dragon Sword King nodded his head imperceptibly. His body trembled as a heaven-shaking sword dragon condensed, resembling a gigantic sword that reached the heavens. Shenxiao opened his arms, an endless divine light soaked the sky. His momentum rose to the extreme. As for Qinglin, he directly transformed into a divine beast, Qilin, and his every move shook the earth. These 3 Divine Firmament Realm cultivators were ready to go all out. The immovable Wisdom King behind Tu Deng opened his eyes and locked onto Qinglin. Countless purple lights scattered around Nine Leaf like meteors, shrouding Shenxiao. As for Startling Dragon Sword King, He was still choosing whether to besiege Tooting or Nine-Leaf first, but suddenly he felt a murderous intent. He turned to look, and the murderous intent actually came from the man who called himself the Emperor of Fengdu. Lung Shiqi raised his head and looked straight at startling Dragon Sword King. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. Suddenly, the gates of hell, full of death, the netherworld, and inauspiciousness loomed in a cloud of black gas. The thousand illusion Dao sword slashed out, and a sword immortal phantom stepped out. Immediately, Lung Shiqi's divine soul came out of the sheath and integrated into the sword immortal phantom together with the countless souls of the mansion of hell. With one sword, ghosts and gods were shocked. Ghost God Sword. Chapter 828. At first, the startling Dragon Sword Monarch was filled with disdain when he saw that Lung Shiqi actually dared to attack him. A mere Heaven Man Unity cultivator was just a slightly stronger ant in his eyes. Daring to interfere in a battle between Heaven Origin cultivators was simply courting death. However, the startling Dragon Sword Monarch was really shocked when he saw the Demon Sword Monarch. Not only him, but even Divine Firmament, Qinglin and Gus widened their eyes. How could a Heaven Man Unity cultivator be so powerful? A dragon scale sword appeared in the startling Dragon Sword Monarch's hand. Facing Lung Shiqi, he had to use his sword. The moment he unsheathed his sword, a boundless aura instantly descended. His sword technique seemed to be able to stir the void. And a humongous sword dragon phantom that was thousands of feet long appeared like a god descending from the heavens. Although that sword dragon was an illusory existence, that boundless sharp sword intent was like a thorn in one's back, and it descended as if the sky was collapsing. The sword dragon's descent immediately caused the Demon Sword Monarch to tremble, but the Demon Sword Monarch mysteriously disappeared. When it reappeared, it actually directly pierced into the sword dragon's body. In that instant, countless netherworld sword auras erupted and tore the sword dragon into two from the inside. However, the Demon Sword Monarch was finally exhausted. The startling Dragon Sword Monarch was stunned. Even a Heaven Origin cultivator would not be able to easily block that sword attack, let alone a Heaven Origin cultivator. However, this Emperor of Fengdu did it. Supremacy Divine Firmament and Qinglin, who were fighting fiercely, could not help but be surprised. Nine-Leaf smiled strangely and suddenly split into thousands of illusory figures. With a flick of her fingers, purple light instantly filled the sky, everywhere in the sky and on the ground. Immediately after, a 1,000 feet long giant scorpion suddenly appeared. The giant scorpion opened its mouth and spat out a gust of green gas. That gas was like the nemesis of the Divine Firmament Supremacy's divine light. It was instantly sucked clean. Supremacy Divine Firmament's aura clearly weakened. He was shocked to discover that a portion of the divine light that he had cultivated for so many years had disappeared. He stared at Nine-Leaf with wide eyes. Who exactly are you? Humph, you dare to be distracted while fighting with me? Old brat, your luck isn't shallow either. You can actually use your soul force to draw in the essence energy of heaven and earth. Truly impressive. Following that, Nine-Leaf teased. But you met me. I can only say that your luck is bad. On the other side, Qinglin, who was fighting with Tooting, had a bad feeling. The startling Dragon Sword Monarch was being held back by a Heaven Man Unity cultivator, while the Divine Firmament Supremacy was being suppressed by Nine-Leaf. If this continued, they would definitely lose. He had to step up. The Divine Beast Qilin looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. In an instant, thunderclouds covered the sky. Countless green lightning bolts intertwined and collided, creating bursts of sparks. The power of lightning tore through space and attacked Tu Deng. However, Tu Deng didn't move at all. The immovable Wisdom King statue behind him supported the sky with its arms, unmoving like a mountain. Chi-Chi. Countless bolts of azure lightning struck the immovable Wisdom King statue, emitting ear-piercing sounds of thunder. However, no matter how the lightning struck, the immovable Wisdom King statue remained unmoved. Qinglin's heart sank. He couldn't even break through Tu Deng's defense with his full strength. The startling Dragon Sword Monarch didn't divert his attention to care about the Divine Firmament Supremacy and Qinglin. After his sword dragon was broken, the sword aura in his hand suddenly changed. It changed from the original majestic aura to the current ethereal and gentle aura. A dragon's roar reverberated in midair. Dark clouds covered the sky, and torrential rain poured down. A dragon could move the clouds and summon the rain, benefiting the common people. He could use his sword to transform into a dragon and shake the heavens and earth. He could also summon the clouds and summon the rain. However, the rain the startling dragon sword monarch summoned wasn't the sweet dew that benefited the common people. It was a sky full of sword aura that could take one's life. Lung Shiqi's eyes revealed a trace of seriousness. From the power of the startling dragon sword monarch's consecutive attacks, his cultivation level was already very close to the peak of the divine origin realm. As expected of the strongest expert guarding Zhulu country. Just as that sky full of sword aura filled the sky, a fist-sized black dot appeared in the sky. No one noticed it in the dark night. But suddenly, that black dot emitted a powerful magical power. All of the startling dragon sword monarch's sword aura actually reversed in midair and shot toward that black dot. What was even more surprising was that when the sword aura hit the black dot, it disappeared without a trace like a clay ox entering the sea. Not even a trace was left behind. The law of gravity, black hole space. The startling dragon sword monarch also felt a pulling force that wanted to pull him toward the black ball. Even a late-stage divine origin expert like him had to use all his strength to suppress that force. Not only him, but Supremacy Divine Firmament and Qing Lin were also affected by the black hole space. Qing Lin was still fine since Tu Deng didn't take the initiative to attack. However, Supremacy Divine Firmament was in trouble. The cultivation technique he had cultivated his entire life just happened to be countered by Nine Leave. Nine Leave was slowly devouring his strength, so he could only passively struggle. Now that he was pulled by the black hole space, he instantly revealed a flaw. Nine Leave let out a sharp, ear-piercing sound that seemed to be able to pull one's soul out. A huge bump appeared on Supremacy Divine Firmament's back, as if something was going to pop out. Supremacy Divine Firmament's face turned pale with fright, as that was a part of his soul. The reason he was able to break through to the divine origin realm back then was that he had found another way. He had split his soul into two and used the power of his soul to communicate with the essence energy of heaven and earth, thus breaking through in one go. He didn't expect to meet an ancestor who played with the power of the soul today. The part of his soul that he had split became his own death sentence. Once that part of his soul was taken away, he would immediately lose the power of the divine origin realm. In a battle of this level, only death awaited him. No. Big brother startling dragon Qing Lin, come and help me. Supremacy Divine Firmament could only shout for help. Qing Lin turned around and was also shocked. They had only fought for a short while, so why did Divine Firmament look like he was about to die? Just as he was about to help, Tu Deng finally moved. He used his palm as a saber and slashed out with it. Light shone brightly, and even the void was torn apart. The phantom of a Buddha of slaughter appeared, and the chanting of Buddhist hymns could be heard. Indeed, it carried a murderous intent that could shake one's soul. Qing Lin instantly felt a chill on his back, followed by cold sweat. At that moment, he actually had a feeling that he would be killed. He would be killed by Tu Deng's saber. Qing Lin didn't know if it was an illusion or a premonition of death, but he was sure that it was best for him not to move. Currently, this battle was already completely out of his control. He was already doing his best to stall Tu Deng. Thus Qing Lin silently retreated, but he didn't attack Tu Deng anymore. The two of them just stared at each other in midair. Supremacy Divine Firmament was almost in despair when he saw this scene. He could only place his hopes on the startling Dragon Sword King. However, the startling Dragon Sword King didn't have time to care about him as the power of the Fire Phoenix, White Tiger, Water Dragon, and Black Tortoise were slowly fusing in front of him. Lung Shiqi transformed into his indestructible evil Buddha body. He had 2 wings and 6 arms, and his entire body was covered in a dense ghostly aura. The power of laws stirred up the wind and clouds. 4 Spirit Formation. Chapter 829. The 4 Spirits Formation diagram fused the power of the 4 elements, causing the heavenly might to descend in a panic. Shocking Dragon Sword King's heart was in turmoil. Just now, Lung Shiqi's black hole space contained the power of law. He thought that it was formed by Lung Shiqi using some kind of treasure. But now, he saw Lung Shiqi condense the four spirits formation diagram with his own eyes. A unity of heaven and man realm actually controlled a trace of the power of the heavenly law. How was this possible? It was too absurd. Shocking Dragon Sword King even thought that his old eyes were blurred for a moment. But the four spirits formation diagram's power of law told him that all of this was real. Shocking Dragon Sword King stabilized his mind and did not waste any time. His figure moved like a swimming dragon. Majestic sword intent burst out like a god descending to the world with a loud bang. The ground within a radius of dozens of miles was violently suppressed by this sword, forming a huge pit. When the four spirits formation diagram fell, countless sounds of metal clashing could be heard in the air. It was simply deafening. Under Shocking Dragon Sword King's full strength, he finally blocked the four spirits formation diagram. Just as he was about to heave a sigh of relief, the four spirits formation diagram shone brightly, and then exploded with a loud bang. The spiritual energy fluctuations in the air were accompanied by a huge wave that could be seen with the naked eye. Nine Leave and the others who were still fighting had to retreat temporarily. Those unity of heaven and man realm and spirit astral realm cultivators on the ground were sent flying. They were in a sorry state. Shocking Dragon Sword King roared and formed a seal with both hands. The long sword in his hand shattered with a loud bang and a powerful force suddenly burst out. Then, a dragon shadow flashed out. However, it was not a mystical sky dragon, but a remnant dragon with a tragic aura. Lung Shiqi frowned. This Shocking Dragon Sword King actually directly destroyed his own spiritual artifact and sacrificed his sword spirit. That spiritual sword was also an 8th level earth weapon. He used his sky origin realm cultivation to control the sword spirit and burst out with a powerful attack. Seeing this, Lung Shiqi knew that the four spirits formation diagram could not do anything to Shocking Dragon Sword King. Sure enough, although the remnant dragon phantom was not as powerful as before, it was able to restrain its endless power and neutralize the power of the explosion of the four spirits array diagram. However, that startling Dragon Sword King was not in a good state either. His complexion was currently pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Clearly, he had received internal injuries. Moreover, his self-destruction of the sword spirit was equivalent to severing one of his arms. This would greatly reduce his battle prowess. He took the opportunity to observe the other battlefield, and his heart immediately sank to the bottom. Qing Lin was being stared at by Tu Dang. He didn't even dare to move. Venerable Divine Firmament was in an even worse state than the Sword Monarch himself. At that moment, a blurry figure similar to Venerable Divine Firmament was about to be pulled out. Venerable Divine Firmament's pained expression showed that he could not hold on for long. Startling Dragon Sword King was incomparably shocked. Where did these experts come from? The fact that Tu Dang was able to create his own Buddhist sect meant that he was indeed an extremely talented individual. It was still acceptable for him to have such strength. But who were Nine Leave and the great emperor of Fengdu? Each one was stronger than the other. Lung Shiqi's cultivation level was clearly not high, but his strength was close to the peak of the divine essence realm. Since when did such a freakish prodigy appear in this world? Lung Shiqi had not been idle during those few months when he was building the king's mansion. He had constantly recalled and comprehended that battle with Zhuozhou, and his control of the power of laws had become even more skilled. For example, now he had used the black hole space to neutralize one of the startling Dragon Sword King's attacks. Subsequently, it had greatly affected the startling Dragon Sword King's strength. He could also use two types of laws at the same time. Otherwise, just the four spirit formation alone would not be able to force the startling Dragon Sword King to such a state. The startling Dragon Sword King could not care so much now. An evil force suddenly rose from his body, and at the same time, his body rapidly shriveled up. In the blink of an eye, he was like a dried corpse. Everyone who noticed this was stunned. The startling Dragon Sword King was actually forced to overdraw his lifespan by Lung Shiqi? How could this be? That startling Dragon Sword King did not have much lifespan left. Even if he did not die after this battle, he would probably have to prepare for his funeral. What really shocked everyone was that Lung Shiqi's strength was too abnormal. Not only them, but also Delta Origi from the Mansion of the Dead thought so. At this time, they were watching the battle from afar, and their eyes were all filled with disbelief and shock. For example, Delta Origi did not see the battle between Lung Shiqi and Zhuozhou last time in the demonic Miasma Mountains. This time she really saw the strength of Lung Shiqi. Yu Shu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They came out of the Bloodmist Island at the same time as Lung Shiqi. It had only been a few years, and they were still practicing hard in the Gang Spirit realm. However, Lung Shiqi was already able to force a Tianyuan realm expert to overdraw his lifespan. The difference between the two was really huge. After a long time, Meng Ming suddenly sighed deeply and completely gave up chasing Lung Shiqi. Even if Lung Shiqi stayed in the same place for dozens of years, he would not be able to reach such strength today. How could he chase after him? On the other side, Tuding and Jiuli were also surprised. When they knew Lung Shiqi, they all knew him as seniors and experts. But tonight, Lung Shiqi's strength was no weaker than theirs. In some aspects, he was even stronger than them. For example, the power of the law of heaven and earth. This was the key to opening the door of the Tongxian realm. Startling Dragon Sword King was now focused. Since the situation had come to this, he had no way out. If he retreated, he would let Zhu Lugua fall into the hands of others. He did not believe that Princess Carol could invite these experts over. It was nothing more than the other party secretly controlling Zhu Lugua. He absolutely could not let this happen. Startling Dragon Sword King did not have a sword in his hand, but he was the sharpest sword in the world. He pointed out a finger, and in an instant, a dragon roared. However, it was not a majestic sky dragon but a bone dragon. A dark, decaying, and terrifying aura spread out. Lung Shiqi snickered in his heart. He was the least afraid of these evil forces. As his spirit energy surged, the Mahavairakana form appeared, and a giant golden dragon coiled up and soared into the sky. Immediately after, endless Buddhist light expelled the night sky, and Buddhist lotuses scattered down. In the voice of the ninth heaven, a Buddhist palm that covered the sky suddenly slammed down. Mahavairakana dragon flame palm. Amitba. Tuding, who was at the side, chanted. He formed a seal with his hand, and the Buddhist lotuses in the air suddenly gathered rapidly. Under a dazzling Buddhist light, they condensed into a huge purifying Buddhist lotus. The appearance of the Mahavairakana dragon flame palm and the purifying Buddhist lotus instantly caused the bone dragon's aura to drop by a large amount. Lung Shiqi seized the opportunity, and his body suddenly shone with starlight. Countless star charts radiated out, turning the sky into a starry universe. The countless stars were connected to each other, and vaguely, they formed a giant hand that reached the sky. The giant hand crossed time and space like a meteor, and instantly pressed the bone dragon to the ground. With a series of cracking sounds, the bone dragon was actually directly crushed into fine powder. Great Star Plucking Hand. Princess Carol was shocked and charged forward. Chapter 830. Everyone was dumbfounded when the bone dragon was smashed into pieces, including Lung Shiqi himself. The power of the Great Star Plucking Hand is so great? Even he himself could not believe it. The Great Star Plucking Hand was a spiritual technique created by the Star Clan and Spirit Cultivators. It could be said that it combined the strengths of the Star Clan and Spirit Cultivators, and its power was close to entangling spiritual opportunity. Lung Shiqi had a strong Star Clan bloodline, and he was a human, so he could perfectly display the power of the Great Star Plucking Hand. Moreover, the bone dragon of the frightening Dragon Sword King was suppressed by the Mahavairakana dragon flame palm and purifying Buddha lotus. It was already good that it could retain 50% of its power. As a result, the scene just now occurred. The frightening Dragon Sword King was stunned. He overdrew his lifespan, but the result was that it could not withstand a single blow. At this moment, it was not only the bone dragon that was smashed, but also the dignity and faith of the frightening Dragon Sword King. In his life, he could not be said to be invincible, but he was a powerhouse that guarded a region. Which expert in the 6 Western countries did not fear his existence? His position in the Zhulu country was even more extraordinary. Generations of kings and royal relatives had to respectfully call him Lord when they saw him, because he was the guardian of the Zhulu country. But today, this guardian was actually crushed by the Emperor of Feng, Du, who came out of nowhere. What was even more ridiculous was that this Emperor of Feng Du was only at the unity of heaven and man realm. For the first time in his life, the frightening Dragon Sword King began to wonder if he was dreaming. Below, King Gus's face was filled with despair. Even the strongest of the Zhulu country, the frightening Dragon Sword King, was defeated, which meant that he was also defeated. The result of his defeat was that he would lose the throne of the Zhulu country, and also his life. Gus was filled with regret. Of all the things he should have done, he should not have left Royal City. At first, he came with full confidence. In fact, he should have been full of confidence. He had brought dozens of experts and 3 Sky Origin stage experts with him. Dealing with a mere Princess Carol was as easy as chopping vegetables. But who could have predicted that the opponent's strength was stronger? If Gus hadn't come himself, he could have escaped as soon as he got the news. Even if he lost the throne, he could at least save his own life. Unfortunately, man proposes but God disposes. Under such a coincidence, it seemed like he was really going to die here. However, Gus wasn't going to just wait for death. He suddenly shouted, "Run! Split up and run!" Before he finished speaking, he turned into a stream of water and quickly retreated. Trying to escape? Have you asked for our permission? Lu Ho suddenly grinned. His body moved, leaving a trail of afterimages behind him. His speed was even faster than Gus's. Not far away, a huge green net suddenly appeared in front of Gus. Gus immediately decided to burn his blood essence, and blood-red pillars of water surged out of his body in an attempt to tear the giant green net apart. However, the giant net was extremely sticky, and he couldn't tear it apart in a short time. A green snake emerged from the ground. "I've been watching you for a long time." At the same time, Lu Ho had already caught up. Seeing that he couldn't escape, King Gus's eyes glowed red. He could only forcefully break through the joint attack of Lu Ho and the green snake. Lung Shiqi saw that Gus was stopped and felt relieved. Everyone here could escape, but only Gus had to die. However, before that, he had to deal with the Sword King first. It only took 1 or 2 breaths of time for Gus to escape and be stopped. The Sword King still hadn't recovered from the shock. In fact, for a Sky Origin stage cultivator, this shouldn't happen. However, there was no other way. He was indeed beaten up badly. As for escaping, the Sword King didn't think about it. Moreover, with his injured body, he wouldn't be able to escape from the 3 of them. Even if he was lucky enough to escape, he wouldn't have many years to live. Rather than that, he might as well drag one of them down with him before he died. A ruthless glint flashed past his eyes. Lung Shiqi's sharp senses detected the Sword Monarch's thoughts. How could he give the Sword Monarch a chance to counterattack before death? Lung Shiqi clapped his hands, and a pale yellow brilliance enveloped the surrounding area. Everyone felt as if there was a huge mountain pressing down on their shoulders. Those spirit astral realm cultivators were all pressed to the ground, unable to move. Only those in the unity of heaven and man realm could barely hold on. Even those in the Sky Origin stage fell down one by one, no longer able to stay in the air. Law of Earth, gravity, space. With a flick of Lung Shiqi's finger, dozens of beams of light struck Tooting, Nine-Leaf, Gusan, Princess Carol, and the others. With a flash of light, they were no longer affected by the gravitational space. The Sword King's body was under the greatest pressure. Lung Shiqi exerted more than 70% of the gravity on the Sword King's body. At this moment, the Sword King's body was surrounded by dense dragon-shaped sword shadows. However, those sword shadows couldn't get too far from his body. At most, they were suppressed by the invisible gravity. Lung Shiqi pointed his finger and a dreamy rainbow light shot out. Thousand Autumn Dream Finger. The Sword King pointed between his eyebrows and a drop of dark red blood flowed out. The aura on his body also recovered a bit. The dragon-shaped sword shadows instantly turned into ferocious blood dragons and shattered the rainbow light. Lung Shiqi certainly didn't think that he could take the Sword King's life with just Thousand Autumn Dream Finger. This was just a feint. Just after the rainbow light shot out, 6 mysterious vortexes appeared behind him, and a wave of spiritual energy that coincided with the heavenly Tao spread out. At the same time, Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed. He reached out and grabbed a shadow from the Sword King's body, and threw it into the vortex behind him. Illusion, 6 paths of reincarnation. Then Leng Shiqi couldn't be bothered to care about how many lifetimes the Sword King's soul could survive in the 6 paths of reincarnation. He suddenly became very domineering and punched the Sword King's dominating barrier. The Sword King's entire body was directly smashed into the ground and exploded into a cloud of blood. The most powerful person in the Zhu Road Kingdom's Hall of Worship, the guardian deity who had guarded the Zhu Road Kingdom for countless years, the Sword King had fallen. At that moment, Supremacy Divine Firmament, who was still struggling bitterly, suddenly screamed. The 6 paths of reincarnation that Leng Shiqi summoned had a great effect on the soul. Supremacy Divine Firmament, who could still hold on for a while, finally couldn't control the other half of his soul. Nine Leaf immediately pulled it out of his body. Then it was stuffed into Nine Leaf's mouth. No. Supremacy Divine Firmament's aura suddenly plummeted from Divine Firmament to Heaven-Man Unity. He screamed in despair, but he was directly pressed down by the gravitational space. He couldn't escape even if he wanted to. Nine Leaf transformed back into human form, and licked the corner of his mouth. A ball of pitch-black netherworld aura turned into a palm, and wrapped around Supremacy Divine Firmament. Soon, only a pale white skeleton was left. Amitba. Tu Deng slowly closed his eyes as if he couldn't bear to see this tragic scene. Meanwhile, Qinglin felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. The Sword King and Supremacy Divine Firmament died just like that? More importantly, both Leng Shiqi and Nine Leaf had their eyes on him. Chapter 831. Qinglin secretly swallowed his saliva. It had been a long time since he felt the emotion called fear. Leng Shiqi and the other two had the ability to kill him one-on-one, but he had to face all 3 of them at the same time. What was the difference between this and death? You win. Qinglin sighed. Although I still don't know your background, the winner takes all. You can kill me or torture me as you wish. Leng Shiqi said. Who said you want to die? We are only helping Princess Carol take back her throne. Zhulu country is still the same as before, just with a new king. You are still a member of Zhulu country's royal family, as long as you are willing to submit to Princess Carol. Qinglin's expression changed. He wanted him to surrender. He would not believe Leng Shiqi's nonsense. He was sure that Zhulu country would become this mysterious faction's puppet from now on. As for Princess Carol, she would also be a puppet king. However, Leng Shiqi gave him a choice. Surrender without any dignity or die here. Qinglin hesitated. Just as he was about to give up, Gus let out a desperate cry. Under the suppression of the gravity space, Gus could not use much of his strength. Lu Ho and Green Snake had joined forces to kill him. Gus was already covered in blood, and his aura was weak. Leng Shiqi flicked his finger, and a stream of light pierced through Gus's heart. Gus's body swayed and fell to the ground. He was filled with regret and unwillingness before he lost his breath. The deaths of the Dragon Sword King, Divine Firmament Supremacy, and Gus meant that tonight's battle was over. Gus's era was completely over. Princess Carol stood up at the right time. She only said 4 words. Those who surrender will not be killed. These words were meant for the experts who came with Gus as well as for Qinglin. Seeing Gus die, Qinglin also knew that everything was a foregone conclusion. He couldn't do anything by himself, especially when Leng Shiqi and Nine Leaf were still slowly approaching. Qinglin did not have any leeway. When the people below saw that Qinglin, a Sky Origin stage cultivator, had surrendered, they were even more impressed. Princess Carol suddenly became excited. The surrender of Qinglin and the others meant that she was only a step away from the throne. One had to know that these people were the backbone of the Zhu Road country. With them, it was equivalent to controlling the majority of the Zhu Road country's power. Leng Shiqi patted Qinglin's shoulder and said, You are a Sky Origin cultivator. With you here, Zhulugua will naturally be safe. However, Princess Carol's cultivation is too weak. Just in case, I will place restrictions on her. I'm sure you won't refuse. Qinglin closed his eyes and then opened them again. There was a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Fine, that's how it should be. Your Excellency is indeed sensible. Lung Shiqi struck out several seals and drilled them into Qinglin's body. He didn't dare to use any tricks against a heavenly origin stage expert. After all, he couldn't stay in Zhulu country all the time. After doing all this, Lung Shiqi came to Princess Carol's side. Princess Carol, no, I should call you Her Majesty Carol. Princess Carol said with a self-deprecating smile. It's just a small country's throne. That's not true. Lung Shiqi shook his head mysteriously. Zhu Road country is indeed very small right now. It can't even compare to the West Desolate Province. But that doesn't mean it won't become strong in the future. What do you mean by that? That's for later. Right now, Princess Carol's top priority is to organize these people, and then quickly go to King City to prepare for the coronation. When Princess Carol heard the word enthronement, her delicate body trembled. She had suffered so much over the years, and was even willing to become a puppet. Wasn't it all for the sake of the throne? I understand. With that, she brought her people into the city to make arrangements. At this time, King City was in chaos. Not long ago, Lung Shiqi killed dozens of people here. They were all Zhu Road's nobles and Gus's trusted aides. Everyone in King City fell into a deep panic. In the end, even the Heaven Origin stage was lured out. Unfortunately, he didn't even catch half a shadow. This Heaven Origin stage was the fourth person in Zhu Road's Royal Hall of Worship, Zhong Guanqing. He was also the weakest, only at the early stage of the Heaven Origin stage. He wasn't originally from Zhu Road country, but a rogue cultivator from the Starfall dynasty. After breaking through to the Heaven Origin stage, he didn't know what was good for him and provoked a top sect. He was chased all the way until Startling Dragon Sword King came to save him. Thus he joined Zhu Road's Royal Hall of Worship. Startling Dragon Sword King, and the others followed Gus to clean up the rebels. He was left behind in King City. But at this moment, Royal City was in a mess. Many people were running out like crazy, thinking that some kind of scourge had appeared here. Zhong Guanqing had a headache. When Startling Dragon Sword King and the others returned, how was he going to explain? How was he going to explain? He could only try his best to stabilize King City and wait for Gus and the others to come back. But on the second day, it wasn't Gus and the others who came back. It was Princess Carol. Zhong Guanqing blocked Princess Carol's path. He did so because he saw Qinglin beside Princess Carol. He didn't understand and thought that Gus had made some deal with Princess Carol. Unexpectedly, Qinglin said, Startling Dragon Sword King and Divine Firmament Supremacy have already died. Gus is also dead. The situation is irreversible. Zhong Guanqing's expression froze. He shouted in disbelief, Impossible. Nothing is impossible. Zhong Guanqing, you're not from Zhu Road country. I advise you to lower your head. Qinglin was quite tactful, and Zhong Guanqing naturally understood what he meant. He wanted him to submit. Zhong Guanqing was a little confused. Everything was different from what he expected. What happened last night? Why had the sky of Zhulu changed in a single day? Qinglin secretly sent a voice transmission to Zhong Guanqing. Don't think too much. Princess Carol has 3 powerful cultivators. They are terrifyingly powerful. The Startling Dragon Sword King and Divine Firmament Supremacy were killed on the spot. With your cultivation level, you will die in 3 moves. Zhong Guanqing's jaw dropped. The Startling Dragon Sword King was a late-stage Divine Essence cultivator, but he was killed on the spot. He quickly understood what he had to do. He smiled at Princess Carol. Welcome, Your Majesty. Who said that Divine Essence cultivators were superior? In the face of life and death, they had to put down all their dignity. With Zhong Guanqing's submission, there was almost no resistance to Princess Carol's ascension. The only troublesome thing was the courtiers. They might submit on the surface, but they might secretly obey in public but oppose in private. Thus one person stood up. He was the nation elder during the time of the previous king, Chu Li. After Gus took the throne, he put Chu Li under house arrest because Chu Li's prestige and connections were just too great. Even after a few years, no one in Zhu Road country could compare to him. Lung Shiqi asked Princess Carol to invite him to continue being the nation elder. With Chu Li around, the courtiers would not have any other ideas. Now Princess Carol had many powerful cultivators. Even the Buddhist sects were helping her win the hearts of the people. And with the support of the royal family and Chu Li, there was no chance of anything going wrong. The next day, the monarch city quickly regained its stability. Under everyone's gaze, Carol was crowned queen. Chapter 832. On a mountain outside the royal city, Lung Shiqi stood with his hands behind his back. Delta Origi, Yushu, and Xiongming stood behind him. Seeing Princess Carol ascend the throne, Lung Shiqi let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, I have a place to stand. Yes, after secretly taking control of Zhulugua, he finally had a place to stand. No matter how much power and influence he had in the Thunderblaze dynasty, even if he had a sole avatar as the emperor, Zhulugua was a place he had personally planned for a long time. It was also a backup plan he had prepared for himself. Lung Shiqi had many identities: Blood Garment Pavilion, Dark Thunder Guard, Western Baron King. These identities were watched by many people, so he had to be careful at all times. However, Zhulugua was different. Now only the people in the underworld knew that this place belonged to Lung Shiqi, and only the people he trusted the most knew. No matter what happened in the future, Zhulugua would be his backup plan. Even if the Blood Garment Pavilion was completely defeated, even if his identity was completely exposed, he was not afraid. With this backup plan, Lung Shiqi felt much more at ease. Yushu looked at Lung Shiqi like he was looking at a monster and asked, "I really don't understand how you cultivate, it's too abnormal." Without waiting for Lung Shiqi to answer, Yushu muttered, "I'm going back to cultivate," and returned through the underworld. Xiongming did not say anything and also disappeared. As for Delta Origi, she stretched out her hand and said, "Give me some more essence blood." Lung Shiqi did not hesitate, and took out dozens of drops of essence blood. Last time, when he fought against the Indian army, he saw the power of Delta Origi's blood shadow secret art. It was a secret art with great potential. He was also very curious to what extent Delta Origi could perfect this secret art. In the palace, Princess Carol, now Queen Carol, was still a bit absent-minded as she sat on the throne. 10 days ago, she was still competing with the heavenly Silkworm Palace for a few dozen li of land. She had racked her brains for this. But in a short span of half a month, she sat on the throne of the highest position in Zhulu country. From the beginning to the end, she didn't seem to have done anything at all. Everything had been arranged by Lung Shiqi long ago. She just had to be obedient and do what she was supposed to do. At this moment, Queen Carol felt a deep sense of fear towards Lung Shiqi. Just what kind of person was he? Not only was his strength terrifyingly powerful, but he also came and went like a ghost, taking every conceivable possibility into account, toying with the entire Zhu Road country in the palm of his hand. However, when she saw the officials kneeling before her, she raised her head slightly. She was now the queen, and the most important thing now was to win the hearts of the people. 2 days ago, Lung Shiqi killed a large number of Gus's trusted aides, causing many important positions in Zhu Road to be empty. Naturally, they had to be filled now. Many people were moved by these positions, and it also gave Carol a very good opportunity to promote her trusted aides. After arranging these positions, she also announced that Buddhism would be the state religion of Zhu Road. Naturally, Tu Deng would become the state teacher. No one stood up to oppose this. Everyone knew that Queen Carol had already roped in Buddhism. Moreover, Tu Deng was a true sky origin stage expert. It was naturally a good thing for him to become the state teacher of Zhu Road country. The palace was filled with a joyous atmosphere. However, at this moment, a person holding a scroll rushed in, ignoring the rules of the palace. Report. Urgent report from the border. It's extremely urgent. No one in the palace tried to stop him, but everyone had a serious look on their faces. Something had happened at the border. Ever since Gus had taken the throne, Beilu country had been restless while the Zhu Road country's king was changing. In the past few years, there had been several conflicts at the border, and Zhu Road country had lost more than they won. Lung Shiqi also recalled that he had indeed encountered the battle between the Zhulu nation and the Beilu nation. At that time, he had collected a large number of souls to upgrade the underworld. Later on, he had bumped into the experts of the Li family who had come to kill him. 2 days ago, when he was wantonly slaughtering in the capital, the news had already spread to Beilu country. It was normal to have spies in the Zhu Road country's capital, and Beilu country, who had received this information, knew that this was an excellent opportunity. Thus, they immediately mobilized their army to the border of Zhu Road country. Queen Carol's expression was also heavy. She had just been crowned queen, and something had happened at the border. If she did not handle it well, her prestige would be greatly damaged. She calmed her mind and calmly asked, "What happened at the border?" That person hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, Beilu country's army of 50,000 has poured out, and is already 200 meters away from the border." Hua! The palace hall was instantly filled with exclamations. Beilu country and Zhu Road country were not much different in strength, at most 2 or 3 times stronger than Zhu Road country. Beilu country had a total of 60 to 70,000 soldiers, but this time, Beilu country had directly mobilized 50,000 elite soldiers. Were they not afraid that the Great Moon Kingdom behind them would take advantage of the situation? No, Beilu country was now planning to take advantage of the chaos in Zhu Road country. What worried everyone was that there were only 30,000 Dilu troops stationed at the border. Although the fortress was easy to defend and difficult to attack, in this world, the number of soldiers was not the only factor in war. More importantly, it was the number of experts. Beilu country suddenly sent 50,000 elite soldiers, and the experts among them must be far more than those at the border. As long as the other side sent experts to take the lead and destroy the defense of the fortress, it would not take long for them to break through the fortress. Originally, there were only some small conflicts between the two sides, but suddenly, Beilu country's desperate approach made everyone a little panic. Chu Li's expression did not change. He said, "Your Majesty, the most urgent thing now is to immediately mobilize the Indian army to the border, but the speed of the army is too slow. It will take more than 10 days. Therefore, we also need to gather some experts above the Spirit Aperture realm to take the lead as soon as possible to prevent Beilu country from launching a sneak attack on the fortress." As soon as he spoke, everyone was immediately relieved. Queen Carol also agreed with Chu Li's suggestion. The 2 most powerful elite troops in Zhu Road country were the Indian army and the Dilu army, each with about 30,000 soldiers. The Dilu army had always been stationed at the western border, while the Indian army was scattered in various important places. Queen Carol was about to speak, but Lung Shiqi's voice suddenly appeared in her mind. "I happen to have something to do in Beilu country, so I will solve this matter on the way." Hearing this, Queen Carol's expression froze. What did he mean by solving it on the way? That was an army of 50,000. Even 50,000 pigs could not be killed in a short time. How could Lung Shiqi solve it? But on second thought, it was a miracle that she could sit here at this time. What could Lung Shiqi not do? So she said to the ministers, "There is no need to be so troublesome. I have a way to deal with the 50,000 soldiers." Chapter 833. Carol's words caused the hall that had just calmed down to become noisy again. However, Carol didn't explain and only said, "This one is the king of Zhulu country. I know the importance and urgency of this matter better than any of you. But you have to remember one thing. If this one says there is no need to pay attention, then there is no need to pay attention. Court is dismissed." Then she got up and left the hall, leaving behind a group of officials staring at each other. Many people looked at Elder Chu Li, hoping he could persuade the king. However, Chu Li stroked his beard and said, "I can guess your Majesty's ability. Let's just listen to your orders." When Carol arrived at her study, she immediately summoned someone. "Send this secret edict to the commander of the army at the border as soon as possible." Outside the border of Zhulu country, the 50,000 Beilu country army was stationed here. There was a group of people drinking and eating meat in a large tent. The person in the lead was wide and fat. His body was covered in fat. Don't look at his appearance. His cultivation was at the peak of unity with the world realm. This person was the commander of the 50,000 Beilu country army, Adams. Ha ha ha. I'm afraid that the bastards of Zhulu country are scared out of their wits. He tore off a large piece of meat and laughed arrogantly. That's right. Immediately someone echoed. Our 50,000 army is at the border. Zhulu country is still in internal strife. The previous King Gus is still alive. It's said that this time the one ascending the throne is a little girl. Hee hee, she might not even be able to subdue those officials. How could she have the time to stop us? Even if they send reinforcements now, it's too late. That's right, Adams continued. Their experts should be on the way at this time, but they definitely wouldn't expect us to make a move now. Pung. Adams smashed the wine jar in his hand and shouted, Brothers, now that we're full, it's time to kill. Originally, they didn't plan on giving Zhulu country time to send reinforcements. Since they sent out a surprise attack, they wanted to catch Zhulu country off guard. Just as everyone was rubbing their fists and preparing for a big fight, a terrifying pressure suddenly appeared, as if the sky was collapsing. More than 90% of the people in the big tent were directly pressed to the ground to eat dirt. Only 5 of them could still stand, but all of them were bent over, clearly in great pain. It was the Lung Shichi's gravity space. All of a sudden, the fat all over Adam's body trembled as he broke free from the suppression of gravity. He shouted in shock. Which expert is it? If you have something to say, let's talk it over. You're quite capable to be able to speak normally in my gravity space. A cold voice rang out behind Adams. But before he could turn his head, his vision suddenly turned black, and he lost consciousness forever. Lung Shichi twisted off Adams's head. He glanced around and found that there were more than 60 people in the tent, all of whom were masters above Gang Spirit Realm. This time, Beilu country really put in a lot of effort. He stretched out his hand and pressed down, causing the gravity space to rapidly compress. The gravity within the tent continued to increase. Immediately after, a series of popping sounds could be heard. These experts were all crushed into a pile of minced meat by the gravity. After doing this, Lung Shichi quietly left the place. Even the guards outside didn't know what happened inside. The reason why he didn't do anything to those ordinary soldiers was that he wanted to leave this opportunity to others. If Carol was smart enough, she should know what to do. Secondly, Lung Shichi didn't want Beilu country to suffer too much damage at once. Zhulugua's next step was to annex Beilu country. Unfortunately, Zhulugua's appetite was not so big that it could swallow the whole Beilu country directly. It needed to be nibbled away slowly. In addition, if Beilu country suffered heavy casualties this time, it would also give Great Moon Kingdom a chance. Great Moon Kingdom had been eyeing Beilu country covetously. Once they found that Beilu country had lost tens of thousands of troops, they would definitely send their troops to attack. At that time, Zhulugua would be in a passive position. Lung Shichi ignored those soldiers and went straight to the capital of Beilu country to look for the 3 talents imperial skill. According to Xiahou Ba, the 3 talents imperial skill was in the hands of the Rain Heavenly Master, the owner of Huayu Building. He had also recently collected information about the Rain Heavenly Master, who had broken through to Tianyuan realm several years ago. Huayu Building had great prestige in Beilu country, and countless people came to worship it every year. It was easy to find the Rain Heavenly Master, but it was not easy to get the 3 talents imperial skill. First of all, the Rain Heavenly Master's cultivation was in Tianyuan realm. Lung Shichi believed that his strength was comparable to the peak of Tianyuan realm, but it was still unrealistic to act wantonly in the capital of Beilu country. Moreover, even if he killed the Rain Heavenly Master, he might not be able to get the 3 talents imperial skill. This was the most troublesome part. Thinking of this, Lung Shichi's mind flashed, and at the same time his eyes revealed a strong killing intent. He suddenly remembered that as long as he killed the Rain Heavenly Master and took his soul into the mansion of the dead, he would naturally know where the 3 talents imperial skill was. If that didn't work, he could ask his soul to recite the incantation word by word. At this time, Lung Shichi found that when his strength reached a certain level, many things were easy to do. Entering the capital of Zhuru country was the best example. At first, Lung Shichi did not intend to provoke the Dragon Shocking Sword King and others, But his strength was too strong, so he simply killed the people of the Hall of Worship. It was the same to deal with the Rain Heavenly Master. If Leng Shiqi only had the strength of oneness of heaven and men, even if he had planned for a long time and tried his best, he would not have much hope to get the 3 talents imperial skill. Power, the root of all this was power. When Leng Shiqi flew to the capital of Beilu country, there were 30,000 soldiers ready to go in the fortress on the border of Zhiru country. Not long ago, they received a secret order from Queen Carol, waiting for an opportunity to take the initiative to attack the army of Beilu country. At first, they all thought that they were wrong. Now that 50,000 soldiers of Beilu country were approaching the border, Yunwu City did not send support, but asked them to take the initiative to attack? What was the difference between this and death? But immediately, several spies reported that all the generals above Gang Spirit Realm in Beilu country died mysteriously, including the commander Adams. They all died an unnatural death. At this moment, the army of Beilu country was leaderless, and the morale was low. The remaining low-level generals could not suppress them at all, and many people even began to escape. After getting this information, the soldiers of the ground army did not know what the opposite side had experienced. They only knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The army of Beilu country had no commander, no masters, and the morale of the army was even lower. Although the army of Beilu country outnumbered the ground army by 20,000, the ground army had a huge advantage. The ground army did not hesitate at all. After finishing the reorganization at the fastest speed, they rushed out of the fortress and went straight to the army of Beilu country. Chapter 834. The capital of the Beilu kingdom was not very big, but the buildings here were very strange. They were mostly tall. Tall buildings with more than 10 floors could be seen everywhere. People were bustling inside. It was quite a unique scene. Leng Shiqi had changed his appearance. He was sitting in a restaurant. He was tasting the delicacies of the Beilu kingdom while asking for information about the Huayu building. In his eyes, the Huayu building was just a trick. However, in the eyes of the ordinary people of the Beilu kingdom, it was like a god from the 9th heaven. The Huayu heavenly master was quite capable. Besides, the Beilu kingdom was behind it. The ordinary people were fooled by the Beilu kingdom. Therefore, Leng Shiqi quickly found the location of the Huayu building, which was built right next to the palace of the Beilu kingdom. Logically speaking, this was extremely unreasonable. This kind of layout was like a mountain containing 2 tigers. No king would do this. However, the king of the Beilu kingdom still did it. That was why Leng Shiqi was suspicious. The Huayu building was so close to the palace. If he killed the Huayu heavenly master, it would attract the attention of the Tianyuan stage cultivators of the Beilu kingdom. Therefore, he had to wait for an opportunity. The opportunity would come soon. Therefore, Leng Shiqi stayed in the restaurant and observed the movements of the Melting Rain Tower. Not only the Melting Rain Tower, but also the residences of some of the ministers. When night fell, all the mansions suddenly lit up. Groups of people hurried to the palace of the Beilu kingdom. Several people from the Huayu building were also walking to the palace. One of them was in the Tianyuan stage. He was the Huayu heavenly master. Leng Shiqi immediately moved and followed the Huayu heavenly master. However, he was not going to follow the Huayu heavenly master. After all, they were all going to the palace. Leng Shiqi was worried that there might be a high-level sensing formation. Therefore, he did not want to enter the palace. His real target was the other important ministers. Soon, everyone arrived at the main hall of the palace. The atmosphere in the main hall was so heavy that it was difficult to breathe. Kirk, the king of the Beilu kingdom, looked so bitter. The air in the main hall seemed to be frozen. Nobody dared to breathe. This was because they had all received the same information. To be more precise, it was a battle report. Just half a day ago, the Zhu country's army of 30,000 had defeated the Beilu country's army of 50,000. More than half of the Beilu army had been killed or injured. They were killed so badly that they threw away their helmets and abandoned their armor. The border was also broken through by the Earth Army, and they directly took 2 cities and 6 towns. Defeat, a crushing defeat. 50,000 against 30,000. Yet they still suffered such a crushing defeat. Everyone, including the king of the inferior stream kingdom, Kirk, had the first reaction of disbelief when they received the report. The Wuwan army sent out by the Jilu country was not a mob, and there were many high-level spirit cultivators. How could they be beaten so badly by the 30,000 people of the Zhulu country? What made it even harder for them to accept was that they had actually lost their city. Originally, Jilu Nation and Zhulu Nation's national strength were about the same. Both sides had been fighting for decades, and there had never been a case of losing a city. The defeat this time not only greatly damaged the national strength of the Beilu country, but also completely humiliated them. At this moment, the most urgent thing for them was not to investigate why they lost, nor did they have the time to find out who was responsible. The most important thing now was how to stabilize the people's hearts and protect the Beilu country's land. One must know that the enemy of the Beilu country was not only the Zhulu country, but also the even more powerful Great Yuklan Kingdom. If the Great Yuklan Kingdom were to add insult to injury and make the Beilu country face enemies from both sides, then they would really be in danger of being annihilated. Kirk had a headache as he pressed his forehead. He no longer had the mood to rage and sighed deeply. I thought that we would be the ones attacking the city, but the result was the opposite. Since it has already happened, let's not care about the reason. Now let's talk about what to do. The main hall was still silent. After a long while someone spoke. Your Majesty, I think that with the current situation, we must do 3 things at the same time. First, send an envoy to negotiate with the Zhulu country. Second, settle the refugees as soon as possible and stabilize the people's hearts. Third, be wary of the Great Yuklan Kingdom. The Beilu country was defeated, and peace talks were definitely going to happen. If they continued to fight, they would only suffer more losses. However, peace talks also meant that they had admitted defeat, and the Zhulu country was bound to make some excessive demands. They had no choice but to accept this. After all, they had been defeated. The winner was the king, and the loser was the bandit. It was that simple. No one objected to the peace talks. No one jumped out and insisted on fighting with the Zhulu country to the end. This matter was quickly decided on the envoy. As for stabilizing the people's hearts, they discussed with each other and did not have a good way. At this time, a person's eyes flashed with a ray of 9-colored light, and then he stepped forward and said, I think it's better to let the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master go. He has great prestige among the people. As long as he uses a little trick, he should be able to make those people quickly submit. Then several people agreed with this idea. Kirk looked at the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master and asked for his opinion. The Rain Transformation Heavenly Master was wearing a strange mask, so people could not see his face. He was full of mystery. Everyone looked at him with some fear. He did not seem to be very friendly in the eyes of these ministers. The Rain Transformation Heavenly Master did not treat these people well. In the Beilu country, only the king could make him treat them with respect. And if the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master did not agree, even the king could not force him. The Rain Transformation Heavenly Master smiled strangely. It is my duty to share the worries of the king. I will leave early tomorrow morning. That's good. With the Heavenly Master, there is nothing to worry about. Kirk smiled. At this time, Lung Shichi was outside the palace, waiting for the result. He had used illusion to change the minds of several ministers, and let them suggest the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master to pacify the people. But he did not enter the palace just in case. He could only wait here. Not long after, some people came out of the palace. Lung Shichi finally got the answer he wanted. Since the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master agreed to help, it meant that he would leave the Beilu country. As long as he left the country, it would give Lung Shichi a chance to make his move. He was not interested in the identity of the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master, nor was he interested in why the Rain Transformation building had such a big influence in the Beilu country. The only thing he was interested in was the 3 talents Imperial technique. With this technique, he could exchange it for a powerful fist technique with Xiaoba. Not only that, but he could also be on good terms with Xiaoba. This was very important for his future plans. When dawn broke, the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master took several people out of the city. Lung Shichi naturally followed. He did not follow very closely. He stayed at the edge of the range of the Byakugan. When they were 300 miles away from the palace, he was ready to make his move. But at this time, the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master made an extremely unexpected move. Chapter 835. The Rain Harvester suddenly stopped, and the people around him naturally stopped as well. Master, Heavenly Master? One of them doubtfully asked. Let's stop here. I am talking about you. The Rain Harvester suddenly raised his blade, and several sharp chi streaked across, instantly cutting off the heads of those people. Seeing this, Lung Shichi's eyes narrowed. The dead people were all from the Rain Harvester, and could be considered as half of the Rain Harvester's disciples, but the Rain Harvester actually killed them so casually. What was going on? Lung Shichi suppressed his killing intent, and decided to see what was going on first. After the Rain Harvester killed those people, a small dark gray formation suddenly appeared beside him, and a translucent figure appeared. Trash. The figure angrily cursed, and the Rain Harvester immediately knelt down on the ground. His body was actually slightly trembling, and it seemed like he was extremely afraid of this person. The Rain Harvester was a Sky Origin level cultivator, but now he was like this. This made Lung Shichi very curious about the figure's identity, and at the same time, he felt that the Rain Harvester's identity was not simple. The figure saw the Rain Harvester like this, and waved his hand. Forget it, Zhulu country has a mysterious force behind it, and this failure can't be blamed on you. Your task now is not only to continue invading Beilu country, but also to investigate the force behind Zhulu country. If you can't do it well, you know the rules of the temple. I understand. I will do my best. The Rain Harvester immediately nodded like he was pounding garlic. You take care of yourself. After saying this, the illusory figure disappeared. The Rain Harvester climbed up from the ground, and his body was full of fatigue. He deeply sighed and continued walking. In the afternoon, his footsteps paused because he realized that the world had turned black and white in an instant. Only the world below him was black and white. The grass and trees around him all turned gray, and even the sun in the sky was the same. The Rain Morphing Master was alarmed. He formed a hand seal and 3 mysterious seals appeared around him. They were the seals of ice, wind, and lightning. After that, countless black and white rays of light shot out from midair. Boundless energy of yin and yang erupted, and it instantly expelled all the energy of the heavens and the earth in an area of 50 kilometers. The 3 seals quickly fade away. The Rain Harvester is shocked. Can a warrior of the Sky Origin stage still be considered a warrior of the Sky Origin stage when he can't communicate with the natural energies? Without the support of heaven and earth essence energy, his strength would be reduced by at least 50%. The black and white streams of light then separated. The white streams of light floated above the 9 heavens, while the black streams of light sank below the 9 underworlds. Immediately after, heaven and earth shook, and the terrifying power of yin and yang seemed to split the world apart. The clouds of the 9 heavens dispersed, and the gates of hell opened. Yin-yang brilliant void. 2 black and white spheres like the sun and moon appeared in the sky and on the ground. The power of yin and yang intersected, stirring up the laws of the world. And the point of intersection was the Rain Transformation Master. Even though the Rain Harvester was wearing a mask, one could still see his horrified face. At this moment, his body was being pulled by the power of yin and yang, and he couldn't even move. The black and white spheres attracted each other, and suddenly collided with each other. In an instant, the sky darkened. Strangely, the black and white spheres didn't make any sound after they collided, as if even the sound was silenced. Instead, the surrounding space was cut into many spatial cracks. When all the light dissipated, there was nothing in the surrounding 100 miles. Even the air and spiritual energy didn't exist. This was a real land of death. As for the Rain Harvester, he had already been crushed into dust by the power of yin and yang. At this moment, Lung Shichi appeared. His face was a bit pale. After knowing that the Rain Transformation Master's identity was strange, he was much more cautious. He waited for the Rain Transformation Master to leave for a while before making his move. And just in case, he used his trump card, the brilliant void of yin and yang. He directly melted the Rain Transformation Master, not giving him any chance to escape. Lung Shiqi heard very clearly that the mysterious shadow said the two words, Holy Palace. To be able to order the Rain Transformation Master, who was a warrior of the Sky Origin stage, around like a dog, that shadow must be someone from the Yin and Yang palaces. To be more specific, it should be someone from the Nether Holy Palace. Lung Shiqi had no choice but to kill the Rain Transformation Master. Otherwise, if the Rain Transformation Master had a chance to spread the news, he would be in great trouble. Although he had been tracking down the Nether Holy Palace, and he purposely revealed the name, Lung Shiqi, in order to lure them out. But it didn't mean that he had to go against the Nether Holy Palace now. Lung Shiqi hooked his finger, and took the Rain Transformation Master's soul into the underworld mansion. He immediately teleported thousands of miles away, and entered the underworld mansion. Even if the Nether Holy Palace had some tricks, they wouldn't be able to find him. Arriving at the underworld mansion, Lung Shiqi immediately summoned the Rain Transformation Master's soul. At this moment, he saw that the Rain Transformation Master was a handsome middle-aged man. But from his appearance, he didn't look like someone from the Belu Kingdom. He must have come from the Thunderblaze Kingdom or the Starfall Kingdom. Then Lung Shiqi turned the Rain Transformation Master into a ghost slave. Where is the 3 talents control art that you cultivated? The Rain Transformation Master stiffly replied. The original copy has been destroyed. So it was like that. Apart from the top sects, if other people obtain this level of technique, they would most likely destroy it. It was safest to keep it in his mind. Tell me the mantra of the 3 talents control art. Lung Shiqi ordered. Then the Rain Transformation Master said the technique word by word. Lung Shiqi naturally recorded it all in his mind. This technique was quite mysterious. It cultivated the power of ice, wind, and thunder. It was also the power of yin and yang, and the power of the 5 elements that directly connected to the origin of the world. Unfortunately, the 3 talents control art only cultivated these 3 powers separately, and then used their strengths to make up for their weaknesses. It looked very strong, but in Lung Shiqi's eyes, it was only superficial. He also didn't know why Xiahou Ba wanted this technique. Lung Shiqi wasn't interested in delving into this point. He also planned to cultivate this cultivation technique. It would be a waste if he didn't learn it. After all, it was a rank 8 cultivation technique. But before that, he had to confirm the guess in his heart. He asked, "What is your real identity? Is it related to the Nether Temple?" The Rain Transformation Master nodded and said, "I was originally from the Starfall Kingdom. Because I offended many people, I could only change my appearance and escape to the 6 kingdoms of the West. Later, I became an outer disciple of the Nether Temple. It was also with their help that I broke through to the Sky Origin realm. They asked me to use a secret technique to slowly control the Belu Kingdom. In the future, they will secretly control the Belu Kingdom." It turned out that the Rain Transformation Master was really from the Nether Temple. Lung Shiqi smiled. It seems that the Nether Temple and I both have designs on the 6 kingdoms of the West. Interesting. Chapter 836. However, Lung Shiqi felt that the Nether Temple didn't need to waste so much effort. Even a Heaven Origin stage cultivator like the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master could only be regarded as an outer disciple. The terror of the Nether Temple could be imagined. They only needed to send a few masters to secretly control the Belu country. He couldn't guess the purpose of the Nether Temple. Even if he could guess it, it was useless. What he could do now was to slow down the pace of attacking the Belu country, and further improve his strength. So he sat down cross-legged and prepared to cultivate the art of tripartite control. In the blink of an eye, several days passed. The people at the border of the Belu country didn't see the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master. After careful investigation, they found that several disciples of the Rain Transformation building had died, and the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master had disappeared without a trace. This caused a panic in the Belu country. At this moment, Lung Shiqi was still cultivating the art of tripartite control. He had the system, so cultivating a cultivation method was just a blink of an eye. However, he didn't use the system, but comprehended and cultivated on his own. Now that he had a basic understanding of the cultivation method, Lung Shiqi was stunned. An 8th level cultivation method was precious and could improve his strength, but that was not the reason why he was stunned. It was because he seemed to see a path vaguely. Lung Shiqi's mind suddenly lit up. He moved his mind and came to the edge of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Looking at the place that controlled the reincarnation, his eyes suddenly flashed with a dazzling light. Then the black and white power of yin and yang surged around him, splitting the sky and earth. Suddenly, thousands of miles were frozen, the wind raged in the air, and thunder exploded. A fire phoenix soared into the sky, a white tiger stepped on the sky, a water dragon roared, and a black tortoise guarded the mountain. These several forces and the 6 paths of reincarnation filled the sky and earth. Lung Shiqi's eyes turned gold and silver. In his eyes, these forces were actually strange threads. He just watched, allowing all of the power to surge. 1 day, 2 days, 10 days, half a month. He didn't move, and even the look in his eyes didn't change, like a stone statue. Fortunately, he was the Lord of Underworld, and there was an endless supply of spiritual energy in Underworld for him to use. Otherwise, he would have already died from exhaustion. Only after several months had passed did he finally make a move. Lung Shiqi pointed with his finger, and the black and white streams of light immediately fused together like a millstone that stirred up heaven and earth. In an instant, it formed a yin-yang pattern that covered the sky above the mansion of the dead. He took a step forward, and then the violent energies of ice crystals, divine lightning, and nirvana astral wind fused together in a strange manner. In the end, they formed a mysterious mark that emitted 3 colors. Immediately after, the fire phoenix, water dragon, white tiger, and black tortoise roared into the sky as they transformed into 4 streams of light. 4 spirits array diagram. Finally, the 6 paths of reincarnation of the underworld began to slowly rotate. The power of reincarnation spread out, and turned into 6 giant eyes of different shapes floating behind Lung Shiqi. The strange light in his eyes slowly faded, and was replaced by a look of joy. A few months ago, after Lung Shiqi cultivated the 3 talents imperial art, he felt that there was a lot of room for improvement in this technique. He didn't have anything important to do at the moment, so he decided to continue comprehending it. He had also cultivated the 3 powers of ice, wind, and thunder before, so it only took him a month to successfully fuse the 3 powers and comprehend a unique skill, the 3 talent seal. However, he didn't end his cultivation. Instead, he suddenly remembered that he had unintentionally mastered a similar power. That was the power of yin and yang, the power of the 4 symbols, and the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation that existed in Underworld. Yin and yang opened heaven and earth. The 3 talents gave birth to all things. The 4 symbols suppressed the 8 wastelands. The 5 elements determined the universe, and the 6 paths of reincarnation. A world relied on these powers to maintain itself. And Lung Shiqi had unknowingly mastered more than half of these powers. Although he may have only grasped the surface, it had pointed him towards a path. The path that he had always wanted to find was the path to the origin of the world. After several months of comprehension, he had already deduced the power of yin and yang, 3 talents for symbols, and 6 paths to the extreme that he could control. He had even comprehended the eye of 6 paths from the 6 paths of reincarnation. He could borrow a certain power from the outside world to obtain different abilities. Unfortunately, no one had tried it yet, and he didn't have the time to try it either, because the path he wanted to take was still missing an important link. That was the power of the 5 elements. What he needed to do next was to comprehend the power of the 5 elements as soon as possible, and then combine the power of yin and yang, 3 talents, for symbols, 5 elements, and 6 paths to break through to the heavenly origin stage. Lung Shiqi knew that it was extremely difficult and dangerous to fuse these powers that were close to the origin of the world. However, he also knew that once he broke through to the heavenly origin stage using this method, his strength would skyrocket. Not only that, this path would directly touch the power of the laws of heaven and earth. In a sense, when he reached the heavenly origin stage, he would directly reach the Tongxian stage. He actually planned to skip the heavenly origin stage. It had to be said that Leng Shiqi had a big plan. He called this method of breaking through the heavenly origin stage, Tao unification, merging the laws of heaven and earth. Now what he needed most was to find a place where he could comprehend the power of the 5 elements. He knew where that place was. That was the minor 5 elements chaos paradise. This secret treasure of the Thunderblaze dynasty was created with the power of the 5 elements. For Leng Shiqi, it was simply a paradise that was tailor-made for him. Moreover, this item was in the hands of his soul clone, Lei Haoyan, so it would be easy for him to take it. The problem was that Leng Shiqi was too far away from his soul clone, so he could not directly communicate with him. Even if he could communicate with him, it would take a long time for the minor chaos paradise to be sent over. It would be better for Leng Shiqi to take it himself. Thunderblaze Dynasty Imperial Capital, Discipline Department. Delta Origi was in seclusion in her secret room. The room was filled with the smell of blood, and there were 4 ferocious blood shadows standing around her. 3 of them were the ones she had used to massacre people in Zulu country. At this moment, Delta Origi was concentrating on forming a seal, and a blood-colored seal was sent into the blood shadow in front of her. This blood shadow's body had just taken shape, but its face was still very blurry. Even its facial features were still missing, and it was all crooked. However, as the seal continued, the blood shadow's face slowly became clearer. Delta Origi's lips curled into a smile. At this moment, her expression changed slightly. Immediately after, she withdrew the seal, and her figure suddenly disappeared. A breath later, she returned, and Leng Shiqi appeared with her. Leng Shiqi had used the underworld to ask Delta Origi to help him open an exit in the imperial capital, allowing him to instantly arrive there. Delta Origi tilted her head and asked, "Is something the matter?" "Yes, I came to take something." Leng Shiqi was about to leave when he saw the blood shadow from before. His body immediately stopped. The appearance of this blood shadow was actually somewhat similar to Leng Shiqi. Chapter 837. Although the blood shadow's facial features had not been completely reshaped, it looked somewhat similar to Leng Shiqi. He looked at the other blood shadows in the 4 corners and said with some surprise, "You didn't turn me into a blood shadow, did you?" "It's difficult." Delta Origi did not deny it. Instead, she looked worried. "The 3 next to you were refined with the blood essence of masters in the oneness of heaven and men realm that I secretly obtained. You are also in the oneness of heaven and men realm, but I don't know why you can't successfully condense a blood shadow. This is the closest you have ever been to success, but unfortunately, you are still a little short." Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment. He did not know the rules of Delta Origi's secret method, but he thought of a possibility. That was the blood essence he gave Delta Origi was different every time. They were all his blood essence, but they were blood essence of different realms and strengths. The first time he gave Delta Origi blood essence, it was when Leng Shiqi roped Delta Origi into the underworld. At that time, he was only in the gang spirit realm. Although the next 2 times he was in the oneness of heaven and men realm, Leng Shiqi's body had undergone tremendous changes after passing through the demonic miasma mountain. Therefore, the quality of the blood essence Delta Origi received was actually uneven. Perhaps this was the reason why she could not condense a blood shadow. Therefore, Leng Shiqi took out dozens of drops of blood essence without hesitation, and then left without waiting for Delta Origi to say anything. Delta Origi was stunned. It was naturally a good thing to have the blood essence, but she was more concerned that Leng Shiqi seemed to be in a hurry this time. What could make him so anxious? Since Leng Shiqi did not take the initiative to say, she did not ask and continued to study the blood shadow secret method. After a while, Leng Shiqi came to the study of Lei Haoyan's soul doppelganger. The surrounding formation had been removed. Otherwise, even if Leng Shiqi was good at hiding, he would be discovered. When he entered the study, there were already 3 items placed on the desk of his soul avatar. They were a bracelet, a bead and 2 jade slips. "Everything is ready." The soul avatar pointed at the 3 items on the table. Leng Shiqi picked up the bracelet first. This was the main purpose of his trip, the minor chaos paradise. That pearl was purple and red, and it was none other than the heavenly thunderfire pearl that had been resealed. His soul avatar had risked the entire world to go into seclusion for the sake of this heavenly thunderfire pearl. Now there were only 3 restrictions on the heavenly thunderfire pearl. Every time a restriction was removed, a portion of the pearl's power would be activated. The method to remove the restriction was in that jade slip. As for the other jade slip, it contained the insights of the heavenly origin stage experts of the Thunderflame dynasty, and it was related to the 5 elements. None of these things contain the complete power of the 5 elements. At most, they contain 2 or 3 types of power. For the Lung Shiqi, they could also be used by analogy. After receiving the items, Lung Shiqi prepared to go back into seclusion, but his soul avatar coughed dryly. "What's the matter?" Lung Shiqi asked. In fact, he knew what the soul avatar was thinking, but if the soul avatar was deliberately acting, he would still cooperate. Not long after I came out of seclusion, the impeachment reports piled up like a mountain. You should think of a way to fool them. The matter that the soul avatar was referring to was naturally Lung Shiqi's actions of dominating the Western Desolation province. This matter had happened for a full year, but the ministers still did not let it go. Let them make trouble, I don't have time to care about them recently. Lung Shiqi did not plan to care about this. Comprehending the power of the 5 elements was the most important thing. Even so, there needs to be a reason. Take a look at this. The soul avatar took out a memorial. Lung Shiqi quickly scanned it and sneered. The Northern Wei dynasty actually imitated me and organized a 1,000-spirit gathering, and even found us. That's right, the Northern Wei dynasty invited all the spirit cultivators in the world to participate in the 1,000-spirit gathering. The Northern Wei dynasty is the weakest among the 3 dynasties, and their foundation is the weakest. Originally, not many people were willing to participate. However, the people ranked at the top of this 1,000-spirit gathering actually have the chance to enter the Ashen Aeon world to cultivate. This is the foundation of the Northern Wei dynasty, so it's really a big deal. Now that all the spirit cultivator sects and rogue cultivator experts on the continent have been attracted, the dynasty naturally has to send people. Last time, when Zhuozhou sneaked into the Demon Miasma mountain range, we only asked for a large amount of resources from the Northern Wei dynasty. We didn't ask for too much, so the Northern Wei dynasty specially gave us a large number of spots. The Dark Thunder Guards, the Discipline Division, and the Royal Consecration Hall all have people going. It's good for you to go as a prince. I know you want to immediately enter seclusion to comprehend the power of the 5 elements, but haste makes waste. You have just comprehended the tripartite seal, and the Eye of the 6 paths, which is already your limit. The so-called path of cultivation is relaxed, so there's no need to rush. Besides, you can enter the Ashen Aeon world if you get a good ranking in the 1,000-spirit gathering. It's also a good opportunity to increase your strength. The soul avatar was trying to persuade Lung Shiqi. The conversation between the 2 of them was equivalent to talking to themselves. This wasn't very strange. It was just like when a person encountered something they couldn't decide on. There would be 2 voices in their heart. It all depended on who could persuade who in the end. Lung Shiqi began to hesitate. The soul avatar was right. He was indeed a little too eager for success. It didn't seem like a bad idea to make a trip to the Northern Wei dynasty. In particular, the Ashen Aeon world was very attractive to him. The reason why the Northern Wei dynasty could become the 3rd dynasty under the noses of the Starfall dynasty and the Thunderblaze dynasty was because of Sword Saint Song Yuan. Sword Saint Song Yuan was a sacred spirit expert from tens of thousands of years ago. He was a supreme expert in this world. He was also the last sacred spirit expert recorded in the history of the Starfall continent. After him, no one else became a sacred spirit. Perhaps there was, but it wasn't known. Sword Saint Song Yuan later disappeared without a trace. No one knew where he went. He didn't even have a disciple's legacy. It was as if he had disappeared from the world. It wasn't until a few hundred years ago that the ancestors of the Northern Wei dynasty accidentally discovered a portion of Sword Saint Song Yuan's legacy, which was the Ashen Aeon world. Since then, the Northern Wei dynasty suddenly rose. In just a few decades, it became the 3rd dynasty of the continent. And the winner of this myriad spirit gathering was qualified to enter the Ashen Aeon world. Who could resist such a reward? It was impossible for Leng Shiqi not to be tempted. The news of the myriad spirit gathering has just spread. Because the Northern Wei dynasty has invited all the spirit cultivators in the world, including those who are still alive. In order to give them time to travel, the myriad spirit gathering is specially set to be held a year later. You don't have to go into seclusion and cultivate for about a year. In any case, 9 Leave is in the Northern Wei dynasty. When the time comes, you can directly teleport over through the underworld. As long as you agree to go, I can also use you to send away those ministers. It can be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The soul avatar continued to add. Leng Shiqi had already begun to waver. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt something strange in the underworld. His mind instantly sank into the underworld, and he saw 9 Leave lying on the ground with wounds all over his body. Chapter 838. Leng Shiqi was shocked. He had seen 9 Leave's strength when they seized Julugua. Although her cultivation had not fully recovered, her strength was definitely comparable to the middle stage of Heaven Origin Realm. Who could injure her to this extent? Senior 9 Leave, what happened? Leng Shiqi hurriedly asked. 9 Leave's blood-stained face gritted her teeth and said, "It's all because of those bastards from the Blood Beast sect. They couldn't beat me one by one, so they joined forces with the Imperial Beast Abode and Northern Wei Empire to ambush me. Fortunately, there was the Underworld Mystic Realm. Otherwise, I would have died." Leng Shiqi couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He knew that 9 Leave had left Northern Wei Empire to take revenge on the Blood Beast Abode and the Imperial Beast Abode. Now 9 Leave had actually made the 2 top sects, who had always been her sworn enemies, join forces and even dragged Northern Wei Empire into it. Only the heavens knew how much evil 9 Leave had done in Northern Wei Empire. Perhaps 9 Leave would have been careful in the past, but after she could enter the underworld mystic realm at any time, she became arrogant and wantonly slaughtered the disciples of the 2 sects, causing them to lose a large number of elite disciples. Even some elders and higher-ups had died at her hands. It would be strange if she wasn't surrounded and killed. Leng Shiqi stretched out his hand and drew in a large amount of black gas, saying, "Senior, this energy can help you recover quickly. You can go out after you recover. And recovering is a small matter. The key is that the Imperial Beast Abode and the Blood Beast Abode are now fully prepared. It will be extremely difficult to take revenge on them." 9 Leave sighed and shook her head. It seemed that she hadn't killed enough. Then she glanced at Leng Shiqi and smiled, saying, "If you have nothing to do now, come to Northern Wei Empire." Leng Shiqi immediately had a bad premonition. He hurriedly said, "My identity is too conspicuous. It's inconvenient for me to enter Northern Wei Empire." "Forget it. You can just teleport over from my side." What a perfunctory excuse. 9 Leave said disdainfully. "I helped you fight last time. This time it's your turn. Right now your strength is not inferior to mine. Once my injuries are healed, we can wreak havoc in the Northern Wei Empire." Leng Shiqi face-bombed. Jiuli really didn't mind making a big deal out of it. It was one thing to deal with the Blood Beast sect and the Imperial Beast Abode, but how could the Northern Wei Empire be as simple as it seemed on the surface? However, the last time 9 Leave came to Zhu Road country to help him, he didn't get any benefits. Leng Shiqi came as soon as he was called. This favor had to be acknowledged. Perhaps at that time, 9 Leave had already planned to call Leng Shiqi over, so he came so quickly. This could be considered a form of reciprocity. Leng Shiqi really couldn't refuse. It seems that this trip to the Northern Wei Empire is a must, Leng Shiqi thought to himself. Then he said to 9 Leave, "Senior 9 Leave, please recover as soon as possible." "Hee, at least you still have some conscience." 9 Leave knew that Leng Shiqi had agreed. "However, our strength is about the same, so don't call me senior. Just call me 9 Leave." "All right." Leng Shiqi didn't argue. In this world, strength was respected. Strength was far more important than seniority. Then Leng Shiqi's consciousness returned to his main body. His soul clone was still waiting for his answer. "I'll go to the Northern Wei Empire." With that, Leng Shiqi was about to turn and leave, but his footsteps suddenly stopped. He turned and asked, "Have you found your path?" The soul clone's expression stiffened slightly. Then he smiled and took out a pearl. It was the other heavenly thunderfire pearl. "I'm not as ambitious as you. I'll be satisfied if I can fully comprehend the heavenly thunderfire pearl, and grasp a trace of the law of thunderfire, and break through to the mystic comprehending realm." The soul clone had possessed Lei Haoyan. This body's cultivation talent was already very high. Furthermore, it had refined the purple crystal frost flame. It had a high chance of breaking through to the heaven origin realm. Not long ago, the soul clone had been in the dragon vein setting up restrictions on the heavenly thunderfire pearl. During that time, it had absorbed a lot of the dragon vein's power. Now its cultivation had reached the late stage of unity of heaven and man. It was qualified to find its own path to the heaven origin realm. That was why Leng Shiqi asked this question. He pondered for a moment and said, "You have the purple crystal frost flame. If you can obtain a thunder-type mutated beast, with the heavenly thunderfire pearl, I believe it won't be long before you break through to the heaven origin realm." Heavenly Venerable Black Flame once gave me information about the divine thunder of oblivion. It's in the northern wastelands outside the Northern Wei Empire. I'll go get it for you. The soul clone's expression changed. He shook his head and said, "You also have the crimson gold earth dragon flame. If you can refine the divine thunder of oblivion, you can also unleash the power of the heavenly thunderfire pearl. It can be considered a big trump card." Leng Shiqi didn't say anything. Instead, he looked deeply at the soul clone. After a while he said, "I've found my own path. The heavenly thunderfire pearl is nothing more than an external object. The divine thunder of oblivion is more suitable for you." Leng Shiqi walked out. When he was about to walk out of the room, a sentence floated over with the wind. "I'll call you Lei Haoyan from now on." The soul clone Lei Haoyan's hands trembled in his sleeves. A strange light flashed in his eyes. When he saw Leng Shiqi completely disappear, he suddenly panted. After Leng Shiqi left the palace, his expression was a bit heavy. He felt that something was wrong when he saw the soul clone this time. Perhaps it was because too much time had passed between them, causing the soul clone to only have his own thoughts. Over time, there was a sense of unfamiliarity between them. This unfamiliarity also caused a gap to form in their hearts. In other words, the soul clone already had his own thoughts. He was no longer a pure clone, and he didn't want to continue being a clone. The conversation between the two just now was a signal. Originally, the two didn't need to talk to each other. Their thoughts were the same. The soul clone wanted to use this method to tell Leng Shiqi his thoughts. Leng Shiqi also understood. However, he didn't want to destroy the soul clone just because it had its own thoughts. Everything had a spirit, so it was reasonable for it to exist. Since the soul clone had its own independent personality, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. He might be able to walk further down the path in the future. Moreover, that was a part of Leng Shiqi's soul power. Since he could give it away, he could naturally take it back. If he found out that the soul clone didn't know what was good for him, then he could only blame himself. Therefore, Leng Shiqi decided to give the soul clone a chance. That was why he said those words before he left. From that moment onwards, the soul clone had his own name, Lei Haoyan. The emperor of the Thunderfire dynasty, Lei Haoyan. After getting what he wanted, Leng Shiqi greeted the Delta Origi and returned to Zhulu through the underworld. He went directly to Princess Carol's side. Before he went to the Northern Wei Empire, he had to settle everything. Chapter 839. Over the past few months, Princess Carol had taken complete control of the Zhulu country. Especially when the ground army turned the tables and seized the 2 cities and 6 towns of the Pailu country. Everyone in the Zhulu country was shocked. The Zhulu country had a history of several hundred years, but the number of times they had expanded their territory could be counted on one hand. The last time they expanded their territory was 100 years ago, and Queen Carol had suddenly become the queen of 100 years. This time, there was no need for Leng Shiqi's arrangements. From the ministers to the commoners, they all praised Queen Carol's brilliance. Even though the ministers didn't know what was going on, Carol was filled with a sense of mystery in their hearts. Seeing Leng Shiqi appear, Carol's expression did not change as she said crisply, "What orders?" Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes. This Carol was becoming more and more difficult to deal with. Don't push the Pai Lu country too hard. The Zhu Lu country does not have the appetite to swallow the Pai Lu country in one go. Moreover, I heard that there is a powerful force hidden in the Pai Lu country. This matter needs to be considered at length. Carol frowned and continued. I know that we can't rush to swallow the Pai Lu country. If we develop slowly, I'm afraid it will take 10 years before we can do it. Not necessarily. You should know what the Indian army and ground army of the Zhu Lu country lack the most. Leng Shiqi smiled mysteriously. What they lack the most? Carol revealed a pondering look, then her eyes widened as she said two words. Refined iron. Yes, refined iron. When Leng Shiqi was still a small supervisor in the Western Desolate Prefecture, he encountered the Zhu Lu country smuggling refined iron from the Thunder Flame dynasty. Later on, he came to the Zhu Lu country to investigate this matter and experience the Battle of Gu God Peak. With the Zhu Lu country's national strength, supporting the Indian army and ground army of 50,000 was already the limit. In a situation where they could not expand, they naturally had to find ways to improve. Slowly raising the strength of the troops was very slow. The fastest and most obvious way was to equip them with stronger weapons and armors. Unfortunately, the Zhu Lu country did not have refined iron veins, so they could not forge stronger weapons and armors. This severely limited the overall strength of the Zhu Lu country. But now it was nothing. Leng Shiqi said. You personally choose a few trustworthy people to be in charge of purchasing refined iron from the West Baron Prefecture. As long as the price is right, you can have as much refined iron as you want. We'll store up grain and train our soldiers when the time is right. I understand. Carol knew that once Zhu Lu country had a large amount of fine iron, their strength would increase by leaps and bounds. Of course, the forging of fine iron weapons had to be done secretly. When attacking the Beilu kingdom, it would be a surprise attack. After arranging the matters in Zhulugua, Leng Shiqi instantly arrived at the Western Wasteland King's mansion, through Oziyu's exit. This time he left for a few months. Fortunately, his deterrence to the West Desolate Prefecture was great enough, so there were no major disturbances. On the other hand, the various factions in the West Baron Prefecture were very cautious. They thought that the Leng Shiqi would cause trouble in the West Baron Prefecture, but who would have thought that in the next few months, the Leng Shiqi would not even show his face? It seemed that they were overthinking. The Leng Shiqi was not in the West Baron Prefecture at all. Leng Shiqi appeared in Oziyu's room. The current Oziyu's status in the Western Wasteland King's mansion was not low. He was equivalent to the deputy stewards under his command. However, he did not manage much and spent more time cultivating, as well as deducing. Ever since Oziyu obtained the inheritance of the king of Luanzhuan, he had the ability to deduce all things. The first thing he said when he saw Leng Shiqi was, "You're going to the Northern Wei dynasty." This sentence was not a question, but a statement. It was as if Oziyu had long known that Leng Shiqi was going to the Northern Wei dynasty. Leng Shiqi turned his head. Oziyu was sitting cross-legged on a futon with a charlatan expression on his face. "Did you calculate this?" "You can say that. I advise you not to go," Oziyu said mysteriously. "Why?" Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. "Don't say that I'm going to have a bloody disaster." Oziyu was silent for a moment, wanting to say something but hesitating. Leng Shiqi was stunned. "Could it be that I was right? Last time during the battle in Zhulugua, your strength was too strong. I tried to deduce your heavenly secrets, but your heavenly secrets were like a chaotic vortex. It was impossible to pry into them at all." Oziyu explained, "But not long ago, something happened. Your heavenly secrets actually flowed into the distance and disappeared. And in that direction is the north. If the heavenly secrets disappeared, it naturally meant that he was dead." From Oziyu's deduction, Leng Shiqi seemed to be going to die in the north. Leng Shiqi did not believe it when he heard it. First of all, he did not believe in the so-called heavenly secrets. He firmly believed that his fate was up to him and not the heavens. Moreover, with his current strength, unless a Tongxian realm cultivator attacked him with all his strength, he might not even be able to force him to escape into the underworld. With his strength and an invincible life-saving trump card like the underworld, who could kill him? The Northern Wei Empire also had a Tongxian realm expert, but that person was like the Thunderblaze Empire's old master Qiao. He would not appear unless the empire was on the brink of destruction. Leng Shiqi believed that he was just going to the Northern Wei Empire to take a stroll and help Nine Li fight. It was unlikely that a Tongxian realm expert would appear. That's all I have to say. As for whether you believe me or not, it's up to you. With that said, Oziyu closed his eyes. Leng Shiqi strolled back to his study and began handling some matters. However, he was always worried. Oziyu's words kept lingering in his ears. He was a person who cherished his life, but at the same time, he was a person who risked his life. Along the way, he had experienced countless life and death situations. It was unknown how many times he had been on the brink of death before he achieved what he had today. He had 3 goals for his trip to the Northern Wei Empire: to participate in the Myriad Spirit Meet, and obtain a spot to enter the Ashen Aeon world. To avenge Nine Li, he also had to collect the Divine Lightning of Annihilation. Therefore, he had to make this trip. He could not back down because of a so-called heavenly secret. After making up his mind, Leng Shiqi's eyes became even more resolute. As a person who had lived 2 lives, he had long stopped believing in heavens. He wanted to see who could kill him. Following that, he specially used a day to deal with all the matters. He also began to prepare for seclusion. This time, he planned to enter seclusion for a year, until the Myriad Spirit Meet was about to begin. However, from the various matters he dealt with, the Western Desolate Province was becoming less and less peaceful. After his seclusion, he had to travel to the Northern Wei Empire. It could be said that he had not done anything in the 2 years since he became the Western Desolate King. This way, his prestige might slowly decrease. In order to prevent anyone from causing trouble, he had to find a person before he entered seclusion. That person was the Azure Thunder Army's commander, Xiahou Ba. Chapter 840. Xiahou Ba was not in a good mood recently. He was drinking alone. The cause was the defeat of Beilu country by Zhulu country a few months ago. He did not care about the fight between the 2 small countries. The key was that the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master had mysteriously died because of it. The 3 Talents Imperial Art was in the hands of the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master. Now that he was dead, it was unknown who had taken the art. Trying to find it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. "General, someone wants to see you." A guard reported from outside. Xiahou Ba said impatiently, "I don't want to see anyone." "Brother Xiahou, you don't even want to see me? I specially brought good wine." Leng Shiqi's voice came from outside. Xiahou Ba suddenly raised his head. A trace of joy appeared on his face, but he immediately sighed. "So it's Brother Leng, King of the Western Wilderness. Please come in." Leng Shiqi walked in with a smile and said, "Brother Xiahou, you don't look very happy. I have prepared some gifts. I hope you don't mind." He took out a jade slip and threw it over. Xiahou Ba's heart moved. He caught it in his hand and sank his spirit into the jade slip. He immediately saw 4 floating words: 3 Talents Imperial Art. 3 Talents Imperial Art. You actually found this art. Xiahou Ba was surprised and happy. He originally thought that he would never get this art. Just when he was full of worry, Leng Shiqi gave it to him. This made Xiahou Ba, who had been longing for 3 Talents Imperial Art, so happy that he did not care about his identity. He suddenly had a thought. Since the rain-forming Heavenly Master was already dead, then where did Leng Shiqi get the cultivation method? Or was it Leng Shiqi who killed the Rain Transformation Heavenly Master? Leng Shiqi did not explain further, and let Xiahou Ba guess blindly. "Brother Xiahou, I wonder if you are satisfied with this gift." "Ha ha ha ha." Xiahou Ba laughed heartily. He put his arm around Leng Shiqi's shoulder and said, "Brother, from now on you're my brother. I don't dare to promise you anything else, but if you have any trouble in the Western Wilderness Prefecture, I can solve it for you. Leng Shiqi thought that Xiaoba was too realistic. Of course, this was exactly what he wanted. He said, speaking of which, I do have something to trouble Brother Xiao. Just say it. Xiaoba seemed to have a plan in mind. He beckoned with his hand, looking heroic. His Majesty has already ordered me to go to the Northern Wei Empire to participate in the All-Spirit Gathering. Leng Shiqi revealed his worries about leaving the Thunderflame Empire. Hearing that, Xiaoba agreed without hesitation. So it's just a small matter. Brother Leng, don't worry, our Western Wasteland province has always kept a close eye on those spirit cultivator sects. No matter how much courage they have, they wouldn't dare to provoke the Western Wasteland King's mansion. As such, Leng Shiqi was relieved. Brother Leng, since you brought the 3 talents Imperial Art, according to our agreement, you can take this jade scroll. What was recorded inside was Xiaoba's self-created fist technique, Tyrannical Barrier. After completing the transaction, Leng Shiqi exchanged a few pleasantries and left. After going through so much trouble, he finally had time to go into seclusion. The first thing he did was to enter the Minor 5 Elements Chaos Paradise. He had already been here 3 times. The first time was when he participated in the elite meeting. The last time was when he hid his identity to participate in the first Spirit Cultivator Conference. And now, the Minor 5 Elements Chaos Paradise was in his hands. Leng Shiqi went straight to the most mysterious chaotic area. He then sat down cross-legged and began to comprehend the power of the 5 elements. Time passed quietly without anyone noticing. A year later, Northern Wei Empire, Wei Capital. The Northern Wei Empire's capital was naturally smaller than the Thunderfire Empires, but it was still a rare megacity. However, even such a large city was currently overcrowded. It was because the Myriad Spirit Gathering held by the Northern Wei Empire was about to begin. This Myriad Spirit Gathering could be considered the most lively event in the entire Falling Star continent in recent years. Last time, the first Spirit Cultivator Assembly of the Thunderfire Imperial Dynasty was basically targeted at the Spirit Cultivators within their borders. Furthermore, the winners did not receive much other than fame. The Myriad Spirit Gathering was different. The Northern Wei Empire was willing to use the Ashen Aeon realm as a reward. Everyone who came to participate in the Myriad Spirit Gathering was aiming for the Ashen Aeon realm. In the Wei capital, a man and a woman were walking together in the bustling crowd. The man was dressed in black. He was handsome and tall, and his every move exuded the aura of a superior. He was Leng Shiqi, who had been in seclusion for a long time. For the past year, he had been comprehending the power of the 5 elements in the Minor 5 Elements Chaos Paradise. He had made some progress, but it was far from enough. Now that he thought about it, it was a rare opportunity for him to comprehend the power of 3 through the 3 talents Imperial Art. After a long period of meditation, Leng Shiqi felt a little anxious and irritated. It was good to come out for a walk. This is the first time I've come to the Wei capital after being in the Northern Wei Empire for so long. If it weren't for the Myriad Spirit Gathering, I wouldn't have been able to enter. The one who spoke was the Enchanting woman. She was 9 Leave. 9 Leave had completely recovered her cultivation. A few days ago, Leng Shiqi came out of seclusion. 9 Leave had been recuperating in the underworld for the past year. Perhaps it was because of this injury that her cultivation had improved, allowing her to recover to the realm of a stage 7 great demon. Leng Shiqi contributed a lot of advancement pills, allowing 9 Leave to completely recover her cultivation in just a few days. 9 Leave's strength was close to the middle stage of the Heavenly Origin realm after obtaining Ghost Emperor Yao Ye's inheritance. Now that she had recovered to the 7th stage, her strength was probably comparable to the late stage of the Heavenly Origin realm. As for Leng Shiqi himself, he wasn't sure how strong he was now. After all, he hadn't used the tripartite Dharma seal and the Eye of the 6 Paths. He could use the Myriad Spirit Gathering to find an opponent to test. As he walked, he said, "The Wei capital is smaller than the Thunderblaze Empire, but the defenses are not low. Normally, with your stage 7 great demon aura, you would be discovered before you even got close. The little thing you gave me doesn't have much battle strength, but it's very good at hiding aura. Nine Leaf was talking about the Goo King that Leng Shiqi hadn't used for a long time. He had lent the Goo King to Nine Leaf to hide her demonic aura, which was why they could enter the Wei capital. Soon, the two walked into a 7-story tall gorgeous building. This was the Thunderblaze Empire's encampment in the Wei capital. Leng Shiqi didn't deliberately change his appearance, so he was recognized as soon as he walked in. A group of people immediately came over to greet him. "Greetings, Your Highness." One of them was short and fat, and looked very tactful. He walked forward and said, "I am Ban Ning. Your residence has already been arranged. Please follow me, Your Highness." Leng Shiqi didn't say anything and walked away. Everyone saw Nine leave, but no one said anything. It was normal for the King of the West to have a beauty by his side. Ban Ning didn't stop talking along the way. He even introduced some of the rules of the Myriad Spirit Gathering to Leng Shiqi. The rules of the Myriad Spirit Gathering were very different from the world's first Spirit Cultivator Gathering. Back then, Leng Shiqi went through a few rounds of auditions in various cities. Only the experts who advanced in the end were qualified to come to the imperial capital. However, the Myriad Spirit Gathering was different. Anyone who was willing to participate could directly come to the Wei capital to sign up. The biggest difference was that there was no restriction on cultivation realm. In other words, even if you were in the spirit transformation realm, you could also participate in the 4 realms of heaven and man unity realm. The premise was that you had to know your own limits. This was specially prepared for those who had the ability to fight above their realm. Of course, there were very few of them, and Leng Shiqi was one of them. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.